and do the intro. Live from the Emerald City in Seattle, Washington, the UFO, Bigfoot, and paranormal hotspot of the Pacific Northwest. Coming directly to you from around the world, this, my friends, is Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer, occupying the captain's chair tonight for SOR headquarters. We welcome you to tonight's show, including all of our listeners on the digital side at Revolution Radio. Don't forget, you can always find our archive shows for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Tonight's special guest on Spaced Out Radio is Jared Murphy, our good buddy, paranormal extraordinaire, experiencer and researcher, and we're going to talk about a lot of stuff tonight. And of course, we've got our good friend Peter Davenport from the National UFO Reporting Center as well with us, going to be giving some updated UAP and UFO reports from around the world. And I'll tell you what, if you haven't been aware in the news, the mainstream media is buzzing with UAP activity from the military, from the U.S. government, the Department of Defense. Everybody has come out of the woodwork and claiming the UFOs exist. And not only that, but we've got gun camera footage of triangles and all that stuff going on now. So let's bring everybody in here. First of all, Jared, are you there?
I am here. Hello. Thanks for having me back on.
All right, buddy. I'm so glad you're out there tonight because we've got a lot of stuff to catch up on. And Peter, are you there?
I am here without video, albeit.
No problem. You can be as incognito as you want. See, Peter, Jared broadcasts, I think, live from that underground Nike missile base bunker in eastern Washington that he purchased, years back there. So, you don't want to give off that location, I'm sure. So, well, Peter.
No, the internet, I've heard, has always been good for, privacy.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. So, Peter, how have you been? I think it's been a couple weeks maybe since we've talked. I was out at a conference, and you were out at your brother's house before that for a vacation. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, I've been doing a little traveling. I was down in Albany, Oregon to visit a couple of cousins of mine and had a wonderful time. Oregon is a beautiful state. I had just great time traveling and being with my family members. They're my closest family. The rest of them are on the East Coast, so it's always fun to go down and just hang out with them, which is what I did.
Wonderful.
So,
well, go ahead and tell us what you've got. Anything new? I know that you were in the New York Times recently with an article. That was kind of interesting. You might want to tell us what happened with that.
Yeah, I was interviewed by a journalist from the New York Times who was doing an article on UFOs, and she called me to try to verify the volume of reports. And I'm surprised she even included me in her article, because I pointed out that every journalist I've ever dealt with always starts off with wanting to know how many reports we're receiving currently, or what the trend of them is, more or fewer. It appears to be a tidy little factoid that journalists home in on. But she did a very nice job. I compliment her. I compliment her and her employer, the New York Times, for being willing to cover this subject of UFOs, given how little really solid evidence we have. But it was published on, I think, the 12th of April, so just 6 days ago. And I just got my first copy of it in yesterday's mail. But she did a very nice job.
Good.
And going back to the point you opened with, the recent U.S. Navy footage, more footage beyond what you've dealt with in the past, it suggests to me that the government will continue to release things during the build-up to the alleged June release of material this year. So they're probably, if they have really solid data, they're probably running a little scared now, trying to figure out what the response of the American people will be. When we discover that they've been shielding us from the most important scientific information in the history of man for 74 years, they're probably asking themselves, well, how are the American people going to react?
That's a good point. That indeed, June 25th, we've got supposedly the deadline, whether they're going to meet that deadline or not, who knows, of releasing the Senate Intelligence Committee report on UAP, from the UAP task force. But maybe they are now having to kind of prepare us for something that will. I'm not anticipating it being earth-shattering, this announcement or this report, but I'll bet they really need to get some people up to speed, I'm sure.
Yeah, even if it were earth-shattering in its actual nature, I suspect they'd figure out some way to take the edge off of it.
Yeah.
Just to make it palatable for us. But in the meantime, I've got several really interesting reports here that I'd like to share with our audience. The first one, and it turns out, Michael, that 3 of the 4 reports that I have in front of me here are from the Seattle area.
Oh, my.
Or Western Washington, anyway, so close to your neck of the woods.
Okay.
The first one is just gripping, in my opinion. Comes from a young man who writes that on the 7th of April, that was Wednesday of last week, 10 days ago, that is, he was driving to work just south of the Ballard Bridge, and at 4:45 in the morning, and suddenly the whole area around his car lit up as if being illuminated by a spotlight from above. He's a very good observer. He points out that the spotlight was a little bit to the left of his car, and it was moving to the left, although it was appeared to him to be tracking his car. He was quite sure it was not a helicopter or not a street lamp or an aircraft with landing lights on. It was very distinct, and he points out that it illuminated the interior of his car. It tracked him for about 20 seconds, and the sequelae, the results of this incident, are every bit as interesting as the incident itself, because he had a business meeting or a shopping trip after work. He was on his way to work at 4:45 in the morning, so I presume he got off work in the late afternoon, and he did some shopping and went home, and he, unlike his habit, fell right asleep when he got home, and he had one of the most vivid dreams that recreated the whole situation and recreated an imaginary day at work. What that's all about, I have no idea, but it's quite well written, quite well presented. And he admits that he was really flummoxed by all of this.
You know, that is fascinating, Peter. Can you imagine if, indeed, he was abducted at 4:45 in the morning and literally did not go to work that day?
Yes.
And they gave him a screen memory of being at work. And, of course, wouldn't it be interesting to find out from his employers and employees, did he show up that day at work? That would be weird. Of course, you wouldn't even ask that question if you were him in some regards. So, what a story.
You raise a good point, and in fact, he alludes to that in his report, conjecturing whether something might have happened. And his report isn't written to sufficient detail for me to be able to share with our audience tonight exactly what happened, but you sparked me to contact him and see if we can get a little more data on that point.
You know, Peter, again, if you talk with these people in person and they would be willing to come on our show just to recount what they said to you, that would be a fascinating interview, a part of your segment anyway, if we could do that in the future. So just keep that in mind.
I should have thought of that tonight, but I will do that for next week, and we'll bring this guy on and give him a chance to share his story in more detail than I can share it tonight.
Fantastic.
Well, the second report I'd like to share, this one also from Western Washington. This one happens to be from Tumwater, down near Olympia, south of Seattle, of course, about 60 or 70 miles. Gentleman writes that on the 10th, Saturday the 10th, so just over a week ago, he was looking at the sky. I'm reading as I speak here, looking at the sky from his home in Tumwater, and suddenly he saw a ball of light moving at extremely high speed and descending. Well, there's nothing unusual about that, particularly during a meteor shower. There are a lot of Lyrid meteor showers, but in this case, as he watched it, he asserts that the object suddenly arrested its descent and began to ascend very abruptly, and it was ascending as fast as it had been descending. So he emphasizes how fast it was. He suggests that it was even faster than what a traditional meteor looks like in the night sky. We've all seen meteors, of course, and they're very fast, but he suggests that this was even faster than the standard meteor. So, and I think blue-green, if I'm not mistaken. Interestingly, Michael, I'm getting a lot of reports about lights like this, and this is part of the reason I included my report tonight. People are reporting blue-green fireballs, and it's not impossible, is my understanding, for a meteor to be green or blue-green. It's due to the thermal excitation of oxygen in the atmosphere. But it is somewhat unusual, and it's really unusual for, as this gentleman describes, a meteor to descend, arrest its descent, and then begin to ascend in the night sky. So,
boy, that would get your attention for sure.
Yeah. And I've had several of these. All these reports I should have posted to the UFO Center website by tomorrow afternoon, and people can see just how many reports of blue-green objects there are. Getting a lot of them.
Matter of fact, let's make sure they know what that website is right now, just while we're talking about it.
it's UFOcenter.com. Our last updating was the first of April, but we should have it done again tomorrow with about 190 new reports. So people should check it tomorrow afternoon.
And by the way, in that New York Times article that came out about New Fork, what did you tell them as far as the volume of sightings?
Well, I think what triggered their article was a report in another newspaper to the effect that we were getting significantly more UFO reports than had been the case in the past. The problem with that statement, the problem with that first article, is that there may be, and there are fluctuations in the number of reports, but unless you go into the reports with a fine-tooth comb and eliminate those that are about the so-called Starlink satellites, clusters of satellites that are launched by Elon Musk, it's really hard to assess the significance of any fluctuation in the volume of reports. So I try to dissuade journalists from reporting that fact because it's really usually meaningless. Because unless you filter out the reports of conventional terrestrial events, you can get a lot of misleading material and misleading conclusions. In other words, what I'm trying to say, I guess, is that the volume of reports of alleged or suspected UFOs is usually in no way connected to the volume of legitimate UFOs in that area themselves. So,
good point. Yeah. All right.
Another report I'd like to share with our audience comes from West Bridgewater, Massachusetts. And this is on the 13th Tuesday of last week. A gentleman writes that he was standing outside admiring a beautiful night sky when he saw a triangular-shaped craft with what he calls star field camouflage on its underside. He writes that at 10:15 p.m. on April 13th, he saw a pair of faint pinpoint lights resembling satellites traveling in formation across the southern sky. And he points out that he's been a frequent witness to overflights of the International Space Station, to Starlink satellites, and a number of other conventional terrestrial satellite events. But this one was unusual because the two were traveling in proximity to one another, but both of them appeared to be projecting what appeared to him to be a beam of light from their nose. It looked like a beam of light in fog projecting from the nose of these things, which of course is all but impossible under conventional circumstances, because if a beam of light is being projected from a body, you can't see it unless it's in cloud or fog or smoke, so that the light reflects off the particles. But as it got closer, he began to realize that the space between the two objects was obscuring stars. So he was looking not at two separate objects, but he concluded he was looking at a large, presumably large craft that had two distinct lights on it. And what confused him was that the space between the two objects was blurring the stars that the object passed over. So it was transparent or not solid, and it was blurring stars as it passed over them. So, very interesting description, and his description is not sufficiently precise to allow me to describe in detail for our audience what it looked like, but it sounds very anomalous, in my opinion.
Well, we have heard that idea that there's some kind of a stealth capability of almost becoming invisible, but it's almost as if, there's that fabric you can see on the internet now that the military has developed. It will literally take the scene behind you and project it in front of you, and it's just like you're not standing there, when you pull out that fabric. It's almost as if they can do that with, the underside of craft nowadays and show the stars through them. Not really, but it looks like the stars are being shown through them somehow.
Yeah. Another thing this gentleman adds to his report is the fact that he saw it for an estimated 10 seconds only, during which time it covered most of the visible sky from his vantage point. That translates to an angular velocity much higher than that of a typical satellite in low Earth orbit. So it was traveling extremely fast, and much faster than a satellite would travel. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, traversing the entire night sky field in 10 seconds. That's really moving.
Yeah.
No sonic boom then, again, I'm sure.
No, totally silent, and no flashing lights, no marker lights on it whatsoever. So, what was it? Initially, when I started reading that report, I assumed that he was going to address an overflight of Starlink satellites.
Yeah.
But that appears not to be the case. And the last report I'd like to share comes from 2 days ago from Longview, Washington, which you and I both know well. How many times have we driven through that city on our way to and fro on Interstate 5? But a gentleman was coming north on a bridge. He calls it the Longview Rainier Bridge, and it's not clear to me yet whether that's a bridge on I-5 or whether that's a bridge inside the city of Longview. But he spotted a white, flattened, oval-shaped object through the girder structure of the bridge. His attention was drawn to it immediately, Michael, because it looked so bizarre. It was very bright, and this is at 4 p.m. on Friday of this past week. So a daytime sighting. And he's made a mental note that it would probably be gone by the time he got off the bridge if it was a genuine UFO. And in fact, that was the case. As he got off the bridge, after having tracked it for several minutes, I guess, he could not see it. It just disappeared. And it was very large. It was surprisingly large. He doesn't compare it to the sun or the moon, but he emphasizes that he was surprised by how large an anomalous object like that could be in proximity to a heavily traveled area. So I'm going to investigate this one a little bit more and contact the local news media down there to see if I can find more people who saw this same thing.
Yeah, that sounds like quite a close-up sighting, it sounds to me. If he's seen something through the girders of a bridge, and he says it was very large at that point, you've got the bridge, of course, as something to compare on, your visualization on the size, but then if he thinks it's close enough to him, it must be pretty massive.
That's my impression.
Yeah.
And he says that his impression was, based on the way it was moving, that it was obviously independent of the bridge. No question about that in his mind whatsoever. And he emphasizes that it had no wings, no rotors, no balloon, and it was brilliant white and surprisingly bright given that he saw it during daylight hours.
Well, and he mentioned it being white and flattened as well. I'm wondering of what kind of shape he might be actually being able to describe. I mean, is that like a tic tac, thing? Is it like a cigar thing or a saucer that's flat? And that would be interesting to know because, oh my goodness, off the West Coast, Longview's on the coast of
In an ideal
Washington.
world, excuse me. I was going to say, in an ideal world, we would have had photographs and/or an illustration of some kind.
Yeah.
But those are relatively rare in the field of ufology, as you know.
Well, that's for sure. I was just alluding to the fact that the Tic Tac sighting of those UFOs off the west coast of the United States, down there by California or just past the border into Mexico, were supposedly 40-foot long, no appendages, round, like a Tic Tac breath mint, and who knows if it's close to what this gentleman saw. That would be quite startling to see in the daytime sky for sure.
Yeah. So maybe we'll get him on the program next week and we'll split it in two.
Oh, if you've got anybody that wants to come on, we'd be more than willing to give them some time just to kind of, and I think we'd like to ask a few questions, I'm sure, to follow up on it.
Yep, that would be fun.
Well, let's give them all your contact info, Peter, and how they can get a hold of all the sightings at the National UFO Reporting Center.
Yeah, thank you for the time allowing me to do that, Michael. If anybody sees or has seen a UFO within the last 7 days, we invite them to call me on the hotline, which is area code 206-722-3000. That number again, 206-722-3000. And we invariably invite people who call to submit a follow-up written report using our online report form, which is posted to our website. And that website address is ufocenter.com, ufocenter.com. And if they'd like to communicate via the U.S. Postal System, our P.O. Box is P.O. Box 700, Davenport. Yeah, you heard that right. Like my last name, Davenport, Washington, 99122.
Like I said, that's that bunker out there in eastern Washington.
Yeah.
Well, Peter, and if people want to be a little magnanimous here this week, they can send you a few bucks in the mail just for all of your hard work in all these decades of making all this information, immediately available to the public. I want to thank you for that, and we should every once in a while be thinking of Peter Davenport at the National UFO Reporting Center with a little bit of our funds. So thank you again for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. And a few bucks are always a big help with the phone bill and internet expenses and so on and so forth. Anyway, thank you, Michael. Maybe we'll have some witnesses for you next week.
Wonderful. All right. Have a great night.
Good night. Good night, Jared.
Good night.
All right. Well, Jared, I tell you what, he just keeps whipping them off here. That's Seattle, Washington, Tumwater, Washington, Bridgewater, Massachusetts, and Longview, Washington. Those were, each one of those things are astonishing if I saw one of them. So I'm really pleased that we get to get the firsthand responses from those each Sunday from Peter. So how have you been, buddy?
Oh, I've been doing great, and I think you might recall that I was at Big Rock in California, and I saw the triangle UFOs.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I don't actually. Ironically, I don't bring it up much, despite the entire subject matter, because again, all my theories are hinged around. We've definitely missed a very advanced chapter in human history, and it's easy to jump to the idea that it's just UFOs, that the pyramids got built because of UFOs, versus, well, there's a worldwide polygonal cymatic construction society that fell apart at that last volcanic eruption around 75,000 years ago, not the Younger Dryas, that it was a period of decay after that eruption between 60 and 75,000 years ago, and then the Younger Dryas, and then the decay, and then we still have these remnant high technology humans that are still here that have advanced. And during that, though, their technology would look very different. And I was out. I had no intention of seeing. I have some flight lessons. I have very limited experience. I'm not an expert pilot in any capacity at all, not even close. But I understand what I'm looking at in the air. I've had the privilege of working with Alex Hoffman of Hoffman Optics, who creates the night vision goggles for Camp Pendleton and other military. They are the most advanced night vision goggles, and I've been able to look through them. So I think I know what I'm looking at. But again, here we are at Big Rock. I don't think I'm going to see a UFO, and here I see a fleet. Basically, I see groups, 3s, 5s, 2s. And Peter's dead on about how these triangles, and these were lit. They had the lights. There was like at least 2 or 3 lights, and they would blink. And at first I thought, are they blinking with each other? Are they blinking in a group? Are they sending each other signals? And I'm watching as one goes from one end of the night sky to the other end of the night. Like, they're moving. And at first I thought, okay, there's like maybe 3 in a group, and then there's one blinking off in the distance, and they're just like, in my mind's eye, it appears that of the 3 in the group, or 4, that one's jumping and then jumping back. And I thought, okay, well, really, there's just we sat there for 2.5, 3 hours till like 2 in the morning, and basically, as long as you want to look for them, they were there. And it was bizarre to watch the movement, because once I discerned that it really was a craft, they were moving off in different directions just because they could. They were just jumping forward miles and miles and then jumping back. And it wasn't like one was turning off its lights and the other one was turning on its lights, so it looked like and I'm like, okay, they're not really moving. But yeah, that happened a couple of years ago. It's a very interesting thing.
How many were you estimating that you were seeing? Were these 5, 10 of them or more?
At least 5.
Wow.
At least 5.
Okay.
And so they would stay so it was 3, 4 in a group, and then there would be one that would be jumping around. So then at first it was like, am I just seeing 3 here and then 2 over there, or am I seeing the same 3 and one's jumping, so there's not 5, there's only 3? And then I'm like, okay, but now there's 4 that have their lights on, but I'm still seeing one kind of jump across the sky. And it's really hard to describe. Like, if we were standing here outside together and I was just pointing in the sky, I mean, it's exactly what Peter just said. The description of them moving mile, like many, many miles. Like, you're watching the 3 triangles and they're moving significantly across your visual sight line. Far, far away. Not so small that these are, 30,000 plus foot, 747s. I mean, they're clearly triangle shaped, and there's clearly lights on them, and they're moving really bizarrely fast. No sound. It's exactly what that was, and it's the most interesting thing to view, as far as, well, didn't know it would be a bucket list item. But then, if you get those night vision goggles I was telling you about, I mean, they're $3,000 to $6,000. My understanding, I don't know where they are now, but the ones that Alex Hoffman creates for Hoffman Optics and for the military, these next gen night vision goggles, when you discern that you're looking at a Tesla satellite, when you know that you're not looking at a bat, a moth, an eagle, a bat, I mean, whatever, and then you start looking at really weird things in the upper atmosphere moving very similarly to these triangles. And it's also a very fun thing to do. I don't know if have you ever done it with the night vision?
Yes, I have. We have on the UFO I team Dave Mason, and he has got a whole plethora. I would say he's probably got 12 different versions, generations as well, of these things. It's astonishing, isn't it?
It is, because you're looking at it, and like Peter said, we don't know if it's military. Like Olaf Phillips, my publisher, it's, his whole book is about the secret military space program, and And, is it a UFO or is it military craft? And I account for that also. I mean, I'm looking at this technology and, looking at the patents that were filed for the anti-gravity, the triangle-shaped anti-gravity. I mean, there is, on the event horizon, why are we seeing all this? Is how much of this is high-grade military and how much of it is actually either ancient high technology of a relative that's still on the planet, and how much of it is foreign from somewhere else. And then of the ones of what we're seeing, like the Tic Tac, oh man, that's pretty spectacular, and that's pretty in your face. And why release all the info? And I guess that's a question I have for you, is what you were saying about the release that's coming up. And we've chatted about it before, but do you think they're going to just re-dump the CIA stuff that they've already dumped, or do you think they're going to, I mean, is it like, based on the obligation, they only have to technically, I believe the reading or the writing, I mean, you're the lawyer, you've read what they've actually are legally supposed to release, but it's really just dates and times, isn't it?
Yeah, and
that's my understanding of it.
They have the ability to attach a classified, portion of this release as well that won't go to the public. So I'm not really holding my breath, for anything major, because the CIA has released their supposed documents, anyway, kind of ahead of that. And I'm anticipating that it's going to be more like potentially, I mean, there's some really good cases in the CIA documents that we've never heard before. I'm anticipating those kinds of cases will be released, but nothing real extraordinary that proves the existence that the aliens are present on the planet. I don't think they go that far yet.
Well, and again, I'm not saying that there isn't extraterrestrial or possible visitors, but first and foremost, the extreme evidence of a very high technology human past, no matter what, truly indicates that if there were survivors from multiple cataclysms and or over a much longer human antiquity that we know does exist based on the anatomically correct humans being found, and not just that they were, it's the same history timeline, we were all in loincloth at the same time. No, and it really looks like maybe that these people, the idea of letting us all know that a very high technology human brethren that could, cure cancer, that would piss off a lot of people. It would be, well, yeah, if they came out and said, well, actually, these aliens, we keep telling you they're aliens. Well, the reality is that it's really your great-great-granddads, and, they tried to give you religion a couple different ways, and, well, that didn't work out. And so we're really sorry. And, they can't really help all of us, and it's like, well, here's the pro. We can help all of you. You won't be where you want to be physiologically and back to 100% consciousness for another 200 years. But it'll be worth it for your great-great-grandkids. And I think maybe that's part of it is, we're not going to get the full truth, because you better keep telling everyone it's aliens, because the last thing they need to know is that really great-great-great-great-granddad didn't want you at Christmas, like forever.
I think that is a good point, Jared. I believe, I think Jacques Vallée said that very similar thing. He says that when we really find out the truth of what's going on, it's going to be stranger and stranger than we can even think.
Yeah.
And we haven't probably even been prepared for how strange it's going to be.
No, I think there's slivers of truths. It's difficult. There are faster and faster. It's Göbekli Tepe. It's the Jakarta Pyramid. It's what's in, like 23 to 29,000 year old pyramid. Then you have what's off the coast of Cuba, underwater, 2,300 feet deep. It couldn't have been above water less than 50,000 years ago. And the majority of what we need to find out about our ancient past is in marine archaeology. And I'm impressed because I kind of keep saying the terms nano-archaeology, and recently Science Daily and a number of ancient origins have all cited research that just came out about the flora and fauna of Doggerland, which is the area between Great Britain and Scotland and Ireland and all the way to France, was one giant continent, well, part of Europe, and it was as little as 4,000 to 6,000 years ago that quite a bit of it was connected. Then And 8,000 years ago, there was even more. And what's important about that is, of course, all of it's underwater, and you have what is mostly, salt water destroys things quite efficiently. And yet they have done research that has just been published just in the last couple months that shows they've been able to figure out from the sedimentary remains. This is, crystals, nanobits, the flora and fauna that dates back even 8,000 years ago and more. Now, when we can do that, we're going to eventually be able to look at deserts in North Africa, and they're not too far from you, but the desert locations in California, and Nevada, and the desert locations near the Grand Canyon, and then we have Mongolia. And if we can start looking at sedimentary remains, which is not so sexy for everyone, but when we can start proving out that engineered soils like terra preta that exist not only in Brazil and Central America, but in North Africa, how can we tell ourselves we're seeing a full picture of the human history, and it's not about, they figured out a really good way to slash and burn, and so those loincloth people were kind of clever too. No, we're not talking about dynastic tribes and survivor cultures of cataclysms past. We're talking about much more advanced humans that were building the Nazca lines, that probably knew the Nazca elongated skulled people, knew them. That's something we never talk about. We always say, well, those elongated skulled people, they only have one suture line and their arteries go in a different location, but we never actually put it in these terms. There was a walking generation of humans, a 14% mystery genome that we all know of now, that was 50 to about 60,000 years ago, where Denisovan and Neanderthal and everyone's mixing together with another mystery group of humans, despite not a single university wanting to test the Paracas, wanting to give us public DNA records of a people that are genetically built and look differently. They're human, but they're not stretched skulls. So there are people who knew these people 50, 60,000 years ago. And the question is, you have a worldwide, again, pyramid building, polygonal construction, and when everyone hears the word pyramids, remember, it's not Teotihuacan and mud bricks built in with megalithic blocks. It's when you look at these pyramids that the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Egyptians rebuilt and repaired and also maintained for hundreds or thousands of years in the case of the Greeks and the Romans and the Egyptians. But you're talking about constructions that match from Easter Island to Cambodia to all over the United States, and all of it indicates a large megalithic, not just size of stone, but the metamaterials they were using represent, just like these UFOs, these Tic Tacs, and these triangular UFOs, they represent a energy, frequency, and wave technology-based human race that had crazy Marvel comic book-like abilities. And here we are, and it's so much easier for us to go, well, I heard of the 100th monkey theory in the 1960s, and, collective consciousness, just became a trend. Everyone built pyramids at the same time. It was just a trend. But you don't do it with 100 or 1,000 ton stone and then build a bunch of mud bricks in the middle. It's clearly a destroyed, advanced megalithic structure that laid in ruins for maybe tens of thousands of years and was adapted and rebuilt or built on or forgotten. And here we are in this time, and it's super cool to know that all of us, you can't deny it, we're all seeing these UFOs, right? So it better to keep telling everybody they're UFOs. You can still maintain a number of religious narratives, all of it post-dynastic, all of it in the last 6,000 years. You can maintain a number of narratives. There's a lot of business built around the narrative of our origin, of our story. There's a lot of people who stand to lose, and a lot of people, I think every university has more to gain by admitting these things and pointing these things out. And now that we're all seeing them, I do think, what do you think? What do you think that do you really think it would be a mild disclosure, or do you think is there a cumulative effect of all the stuff they're talking about, Michael? Do you think that it's, I wanted to ask you, and this conference you just went to, I wanted to ask you two questions, and, about the conference, but also about, what's the most you're hoping for out of this next round of disclosures?
I've always thank you for that. By the way, that was just an amazing scenario that you put out there. As far as the whole big picture, you're a big picture kind of guy, and I really appreciate that. This conference was fun. It was down in 105-degree heat in Edinburgh, Texas, which is about as far south as you can possibly go in the continental United States, literally farther south than Corpus Christi, Texas, which I thought was pretty down there. And it was humid. It was hot and humid, and I loved it. Coming from Seattle, it was like a massive, change for me. But the folks down there were so friendly. It was put on by, you can imagine this, a paranormal UFO conference put on by an actual city entity, the city of Edinburgh. They did a wonderful job. Of course, the police and the fire and all the municipalities and everything was all behind the thing. And literally, they had thousands of people show up, starved to death for a live conference again. As you well know, we haven't been able to get out and about and gather in certain venues. So it was really well attended. And I'll tell you what, my talk at the conference is kind of on point for the question you just asked me. What do I expect to happen with this potential disclosure coming down the road? I'm not indeed expecting them to come out. They're already. Let's just talk about what they've actually done already so far. They have now confirmed, since the New York Times article in 2017, that UFOs or UAP actually exist. That they don't know what they are, but they've got gun camera footage of some things that literally can outpace anything we know as far as technology goes. Dr. Eric Davis has confirmed, a high-level government scientist, that we have in our possession, the U.S. military and the government, extraterrestrial craft that we're studying that is not made of this earth. They've confirmed that. So they've really confirmed the idea now with these triangles, that the Navy has just had some release of this night vision footage, that these things exist. The next step would be to confirm that aliens do exist as well. I'm not quite sure that they're ready to go there yet. But my talk at the conference was to point out that my client Grant Cameron last year brought forth the Admiral Wilson smoking gun memo, supposedly, as Richard Dolan coined it, the UFO smoking gun memo of the century. And my talk was the fact that at the point that that memo was released to the public anonymously on Twitter was the first time in the history of our planet that there was any kind of official confirmation that we are not alone in the universe. And I thought that might be the next step for the government and the Department of Defense and the military to do. They might now get to that point to confirm that we are not alone in the universe. If they go that far, I think that would be a next palatable step for the American public and the world.
Well, if they do that, one of the things that I was hoping for, of course, is from an open research, open book, open source research goes, kind of like open source, like just computing code. It would be interesting to see or hear where they think, if it's off-world, we have plenty of like shungite, real shungite, meteoric shungite. We have plenty of materials that hit the Earth, are used, adapted, and in decent quantities also. And it's time for the evening Minneapolis train for everyone listening. And then if you don't hear it, just ignore me. And then I think that it's really interesting to think that, okay, so when I hear about material, I know in talking with other people on other shows, and just in general, the speculation that if we were already here for millions of years and we've already evolved into some very high technology points, then we would have gone off world. We would have already been on the moon, or we would have already been in maybe Mars. And again, we're looking for that space archaeology. I mean, we're not even at the bottom of our oceans, but the idea that there's also material, raw material on this planet that was maybe adapted to, again, a more advanced human society, or if we were off-world already, or mining asteroids. I mean, NASA lands on an asteroid. How hard is it for us to mine on an asteroid if we were more advanced than we are now? Black Knight satellite technology, that sort of thing. So it's always curious to me to think, okay, well, of the technology we're finding, I think what's all up for speculation, and also, again, exciting, or be prepared to be amazed and pissed off simultaneously. Who are they? Are they really not from here, or is it really just us? And it's really frustrating either way. And to think that, we're in the condition we're in a what was once, we don't have a history ever in our periods of time. The Roman Empire is the biggest thing we. Okay, so for all those interested in Tartaria, maybe Tartaria was way bigger, and maybe Tartaria lasted longer, and maybe it wasn't the Roman Empire. So we can have that conversation some other time. But for now, we have keystone cuts, stone spheres, cymatic stone spheres, big and small down to golf balls. We have polygonal construction walls from Easter Island to, again, all over the earth, and we have humans that aren't supposed to be. We have red-headed, red-bearded people from South America to North America to Mongolia, and we're not talking just dynastically. The Paracas are, a lot of those skulls, they're red-headed people. And so we have a blueprint on the engineered soil that says there was, at a minimum, a actual global, exactly identically building society that had the same kind of constructions, and they went away. So what's underwater? What's marine archaeology? This isn't just a history lesson. It's not about our history, because we have these annoying UFOs that don't reveal themselves directly to us. We're all getting bits and pieces of information, and man, you would think it'd be really helpful in writing my book that if I actually saw UFOs, that would be like something to include. I didn't even talk about it in the book, because it's not that I want to exclude it. It's about, I witnessed something that is definitely not known to our technology, and that was kind of part of the point. It's not a bunch of I remember as a kid, I'm old enough to be able to tell people that when I was a kid, if somebody said they saw a UFO and you were a doctor or a nurse, I have a friend he's a retired architect in his late 70s, and I mentioned him before. He's like, Jared, we were all going to play baseball. I was 9. We saw 5 saucers literally above our heads. They stopped, and we saw them, and there was no noise, and then they left. And this is a very pragmatic, religious. This is not someone who ever wanted to see a UFO. And you mention that, and then you're considered crazy. Not anymore. Now you can say you've seen things, but we're all seeing things to the point where what's the modern equivalent, do you think, of the latest weather balloon? What do you think that is? Is that what they're doing? Telling us it's aliens? Telling us it's, is that interesting? Yeah, we admit it. I mean, what is the modern equivalent of a weather balloon when everyone has a camera now?
Good point.
I'm super curious. Like, are we gonna keep being able to? We have so many spotlights on it now. You, Peter, everybody. There's so many people looking at the information. How do we piece it all together and grab not just our past, but how do we apply it? Like, I get to interview Dr. Gerald Pollack tomorrow. I mean, this guy. He discovered the 4th phase of water. Water is not just cold, evaporated, frozen. We think it's cold, hot. There's a couple simple things we think water is, but water has so many abilities. And here's a guy who literally discovered that water within living organisms has a viscosity and a difference called easy water is what they coined it. This is new information that's been out literally for 6 years now. And he's been interviewing on it, and he was written on it. But there's something we didn't know about water in itself, but we know water carries information. And we're not just talking like, the mystery magical wizard water, or fill in the blank eggplant of the octopus goddess water. We're talking, there is a engineering to living structures that, just like we didn't know there was a double helix, like we know there was a quad helix, just like we didn't know that there are ancient cuts in our DNA, and we just write it off as saying, oh, that's a mystery, that's a mystery. Too many high technology points genetically to triangle UFOs show up for us to say, don't you think they're not independent? Isn't it possible that they're related? And it's terrifying, I think, on one hand. On the other hand, that fourth phase of water, my point about it is that it has to do with the water we consume. There's like a mystery around 80% of your muscle mass is water, but it's easy water. And how do we consume water that's healthy? We think it's like heavy minerals, spring water. We think, oh, well, make sure it's not dead water, like Gronder water or Schauberger's work. But discovering our ancient past, my point isn't about we need to know just our history. It's about rediscovering technologies when it's pretty clear, I think we were more conscious than we are now. And we're on our way back, and we're reactivating things like we've talked about Wim Hof and Stig Sørensen and superhumans that are teaching people how to reactivate their physiological responses. I think it's all related. So when we look up and we see 0-point turning anti-gravity machines, and then we look at 3,000-ton blocks and 1,000-ton stones sitting on perfectly level foundations that none of us have investigated, you gotta think maybe this is all related.
Bingo. What a great ending point for the top of the hour here. We're going to take our break right now. So you get to rest for 6 minutes now. That was quite a scenario that you laid out for us for that first hour. Thank you so much there, Jared. We're going to be right back after this, folks. So hang on. Don't go anywhere. We will be back in just a moment.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot Hot Sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot Hot Sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit, Bumble, we're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby. And tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot Hot Sauce, available now at pajans.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Hi, this is Amber Becker, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost of what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
Hey Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I can find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
Welcome back to hour number 2 of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall, the paranormal lawyer. Thanks for joining me. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Noonan, Georgia, and the UPRN 107.7 in New Orleans, Louisiana. On the digital side, we are very proud to be on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always check us out on our archives for free at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. Just do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website, of course, is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to Bumblefoot, shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, and catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. And now we are back, folks, with Jared Murphy on Spaced Out Sunday, and we're going to be talking about, well, that's a good question. What are we going to talk about, Jared, for the next hour?
We have to back up. We have not had any time since your conference to talk about the conference quick. I do think we need to expand on that for a little bit.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that would be fun. as you've probably seen the posts that I put up, I kind of like to do the live stream thing wherever I go. So they can always go to Facebook at Michael W. Hall and check out the Edinburgh UFO Festival. Now, Edinburgh is EDINBURG, Edinburgh, Texas. And I have never seen a municipality, a small town, not a small town, I mean, you're talking, 40, 50,000 people in the area down there, that literally put themselves behind a massive idea where they're going to gather on city grounds, on the city hall grounds, by the way, and then at the local golf course and all that kind of stuff. Most of it was very social distanced. People did wear masks if they were comfortable, although their governor down there in the state of Texas has not mandated masks. So that's a little different. And literally they had the best speaker lineup I've seen in a while. They had Nick Pope all the way there from Tucson, Arizona. Nick was there. Daryl Sims, the alien hunter, of course, was there. Ben Hansen from the History Channel, the Travel Channel, was there. Daniel Allen Jones from the Vortex was there. It was quite a lineup. And I think people were just really starved to kind of get out. The weather was awesome, as I was mentioning. And they had, of course, you can imagine, Jared, the wonders of the Southwestern cuisine, Tex-Mex food that was available. Louisiana, crawfish. Oh my, they had food trucks galore, you wouldn't believe. And with the bariatric surgery that I had a couple years ago, I couldn't eat a whole lot at once, but I was sure taking those doggy bags home, that's for sure.
Well, I know I got to work with Mr. Hansen for a little bit, so...
Oh, wonderful. What a guy. The guy, I asked Ben, I said, Ben, how tall are you?
Yeah, I think he's like 6'4".
No, he's 6'5", almost 6'6". He's almost 6'6".
Not a short man, not a tiny guy, not someone you want to arm wrestle.
No, he's so nice, and very tall and good looking. He really has an aura around him that people love to be able to come up to his booth, get the photographs, the selfies, and the autographs.
I got a great opportunity to hang out with his dad, whom I love tremendously. His dad's awesome.
Oh, you know what? There was a really cool video that Ben showed on his speech night, where literally at one point he is interviewing his father about his grandfather's work in the Air Force, I believe it was.
Oh.
In behind the scenes with special operations having something to do with deep state stuff. And it was a real emotional spot that Ben got to have his dad come on his show, his network show, and talk about his grandfather.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
So while you were down there for the lineup and you're talking, I think it's important. The reason I want to talk about the conference too is for everyone out there, like you said, they're hungry to get out and do something, which is what the Constitution says you can do, and getting out in a safe way. That just requires people to review with wisdom, math, and science, and that's all I'm going to say on that. You just have to look at math and science, not your opinion of it, not your fear of it, but actually look at math and science. And so I would love for you to, on one hand, it's great that people were out there, and I've never heard of anything. I think it's super exciting, like what you just said, a city actually put this on. That, that makes me want to be involved. That makes me want to go to that city. That's fun. That's exciting that a government would actually support this, create the space for it, help fund it. Smart too, because it gets people out there to spend money. I think that's phenomenal.
Oh, it does.
I'm very curious about your thoughts on not just, because you know what it's like going to Contact and all the different events. It's really, really, really fun. And there's a really good energy, and there's a lot of just brilliant human beings, just very passionate, very questioning, very just very present human beings. It's an environment that I've tried to explain to people who've never been, and it is quite a thing. And in your mind, outside of all the special George Orwellian reasons, what did you think of the gathering in general? I mean, did you have that same kind of energy? Was it also, I don't know, was it pretty inviting as normal? Was it what was it that turned your head, or what did you see that was unique or new, or something that got you thinking while you were there?
Well, I was very impressed with the level of awakeness, if you want to call it, not woke, but awakeness of the people, the conference attendees. These folks are well beyond the idea that aliens might be visiting the planet. They are really up on all of the mainstream media, stories from the New York Times, the Department of Defense, and of course the Nimitz affair, the Nimitz encounters. Just a shout out to my buddy Kevin Day from the USS Princeton. He was supposedly going to be speaking at that conference, and then he had a health issue come up at the last minute, so he asked me to set in for him at this conference. That was the only reason that I was able to go. And so it was kind of fun for me to take his place down there. But literally people know all about the Nimitz UFO encounter and the Tic Tac UFOs. They are so up to speed on this new release from the Pentagon, with all these go fast and gimbal and Tic Tac videos. So it's fun to be able to go to a conference where you're not like trying to explain from ground level what's going on to people. You're at a higher level at this kind of a conference that people literally know what's going on, and they're hungry for the latest information that you might know that they are hungering for. And so Nick Pope was so popular. They are coming up with his latest stuff that he's talking about, and the various things that he kind of like is able to bring to the table. And of course, Daryl Sims always comes up with something new from a different angle when he's talking about alien implants and the potentiality of these things not coming from isotopic ratios that are found on the planet. So anyway, and by the way, Ben Hansen was kind of regaling the crowd as well on the new upcoming things that are in the works now, that things are loosening up in Hollywood, and the productions are starting to happen again. It was kind of fun sitting at the speakers gatherings, after and before the conference, and hearing about how busy he is now becoming in actually this taping of new things. So yeah, I was very impressed. I mean, when you can sit around at a conference like that and talk to the security police force guys that are from the city and the fire department guys that are there with their trucks just standing by, and they're all into the idea of flying saucers and alien technology, and they don't worry about being fired or anything like that. That was fascinating.
Yeah, I can't believe it's still at that point. It's, again, if it's something that we don't understand, it's always looked at either religiously or it's looked at spiritually. It's looked at with mysticism of some kind. It's a one-off or first of its kind. It's the way we manage what we learn and what we know is so primitive and so simplistic sometimes, and it's really a disservice to what it is we're observing, and it allows us to maybe comprehend it, but I think it's a detriment sometimes when you can't say what you're thinking to the point where you get fired. That's just terrible.
Yeah, it was quite a breath of fresh air to be able to literally be on city property, city grounds, city facilities, and have it wide open for you as a paranormal speaker. And literally, they made the paranormal lawyer moniker stand out all over the place there. And I couldn't believe it, They go, so, you're the paranormal lawyer.
I want to get a huge cardboard cutout of you going if we can do the live awards. If we can, we'll have to talk about that in a little bit. But I think a full size cutout that people take pictures with you, it's like And then you can have like a blank contract, and it's like, my contract's with the paranormal lawyer.
Yeah, there you go.
Was it? Now, I have not seen photos, but would you say it was fairly busy, and do you know if they're going to be doing it again?
You know, they vowed to do it again for sure, bigger and better next time at the end of this one, just because how successful it was. To give you an idea, probably one of the highlight of the events of that weekend, April 9th through the 11th, was on Saturday night, April 10th, where literally they had the City Plaza downtown, right out in front of City Hall, with a laser light show going on to the City Hall tower at the same time, with music blasting in a big stage with, get this, 9 foot tall, 4 robot guys dressed in glowing costumes and doing the Macarena to some really amazing Southwestern music for hours on end, and people dancing in the street. All the celebrities were there as far as the speakers go. They had a costume contest for kids. They had a costume contest for adults. This was people dressing up like aliens or whatever they wanted to. There were literally thousands of people in front of City Hall on a warm, well into the 90 degrees evening with all the stars out. It was beautiful.
Wow, that sounds amazing. Do you know of anything coming up soon?
You know, I have heard that there are going to be other conferences coming up now, and I don't know if they're taking their lead and deciding to go for it. But of course, Contact in the Desert is coming out as a live event this year now.
Oh wait, I thought it was virtual only.
I believe they've come out with a live event. I'm going to have to double check that because I know that now I could be wrong, because then I was talking with Daryl Sims about Roswell, New Mexico being a live event this year. That's possible. I know that is something that Daryl was already tabbed to go to, and I think that's going to be live again as well. So that course is one of the biggies of the year, and if Roswell can come out and do it, I think a lot of other folks might be willing to as well.
I mean, it's hard to not sell Roswell, right?
Oh man, literally, yeah. There's just it's like matter of fact, this Edinburgh UFO Festival has been touted as the third biggest and best UFO conference of the world, right behind Roswell and somebody else. So I thought that was fascinating that Edinburgh, Texas is getting in the act in such a big way down there.
Yeah, Michael, isn't the one in, I'm going to be doing that, I'm going to be doing a live 3-hour virtual and in-person event at America's Stonehenge May 1st in Salem, New Hampshire. I'll be there in 2 weeks. And you can certainly go to Not Aliens and just watch virtually. Otherwise, I will be at America's Stonehenge live May 1st. But isn't Salem, New Hampshire really close to isn't that the other super big UFO conference? What's that city am I thinking of? Isn't there a huge UFO conference right there in New Hampshire?
Let's see. The incident at Exeter was a major event.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I can't believe I blanked on that right now. I'm too busy thinking about conscious water and assorted other things.
Yeah, could be that one. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's the event. They do that event, everybody got canceled.
Yeah, I see.
The thing that won't be named.
Yeah. I'm hoping that people are going to see the success of the Edinburgh UFO Fest, and they'll pull the plug and go for it for their conferences from this point on, because oh my gosh, it was really well attended, very well organized, and the people there were so friendly. It was just a pleasure to be there. And by the way, while I was there, you'll be proud of me, Jared, I was promoting the Academy of Paranormal Arts and Sciences Cosmo Awards like you wouldn't believe, and people are going, "Oh, what a great idea! This is fantastic!" And I gave them those little small Cosmo Awards that they could take home with them, and people were just streaming by the booth to pick them up. and promote the idea that once a year we ought to get together and hand out awards in various categories for researchers and investigators of the paranormal in various fields. So they're primed for that event whenever we can put it together.
So, yeah, since we're on topic on that now, yes, I have been talking to a very close group of people that have access to a number of areas in Florida. No, not Miami, and no, nothing near Coral Castle, but in other very well hoteled areas, and not Disney World. But there are some really great areas that I think would be very welcoming for us to have this event, where it would be for everyone listening. Yes, it would be hopefully a very great list of lecturers, speakers, investigators that can all come and provide an in-person experience for those that follow science and would like to get out of the house and exercise their constitutional rights. It would be a good time. And I think that there are some spaces and governors and some areas of the country that are more than open and more than available and more than ready to host us for not only on awards, but to get people out connecting the way that humans need to connect, deserve to connect, should connect, and they can use their discernment, and they should come. And so, yeah, there's stuff. I don't know how much. I mean, we don't have a location. I don't know how realistic it is for us to get people. I mean, it feels like short notice. Like 4 months feels like short notice, right? I mean, we're practically to Christmas again. Can you believe it?
Yeah. Well, to tell you the truth, buddy, as you well know, we put together the first annual at the Quinault Beach Casino and Resort in about 3 weeks last year. I couldn't believe how fast that thing came together. And just so you know, we have got already on board here because of my conferencing, abilities. We got Nick Pope, we got Daryl Sims, we got Ben Hansen, we got Daniel Allen Jones. We got all the speakers from Edinburgh want to be on board, and they want to be there either in person or by Zoom to be presenters. We've got people from around the planet that will be able to show up at any moment at the last minute. Literally, Calvin Parker from Pascagoula, Mississippi was with us last year. We had Philip Mantle from the UK, the UFO royalty from England. We've got a lot of folks lined up already, and a lot of volunteers that want to pitch in and help. So if we can get a nice facility in Florida in the fall, have a red carpet event at a nice hotel, have a celebrity night. And my idea that I think you came up with as well was the idea of not a Academy Award situation where you're sitting crammed next to someone in a theater seat, watching an award ceremony, but like a table set up where you're sitting around like a Golden Globe Award big table where you've got plenty of room between the parties for dinner, but you could have researchers in one field sitting next to researchers in another field who never normally get to talk with one another, and they get to converse with each other during a period of time during the awards ceremony and get to know each other a lot better. I think that would be important. Now, here's the kicker of this awards ceremony. The big draw for our awards, the Cosmo Awards, is literally to have all the award recipients be encouraged to give out some bit of disclosure that they have not given yet. This is going to create a competition, I believe, amongst the presenters and amongst the award recipients that, oh my, I better come up with something a little bit better than the next guy that came up here, or woman, because people are expecting to hear something unique and new. So that's going to be a fun thing to see.
Amuse us or we will thumb you down.
Exactly. And people will be listening in around the world going, okay, this is where disclosure really happens, during an annual award show.
Well, and I think there's two parts to it. One is I think people who have had the experience to go to a live conference and hear a lecture, see a panel, It's a really fun experience. I think it would be different to, as I think we've imagined, where you can get these group of investigators together and be able to mingle for the first time, not just as not as competitors, or not that that's the case, but as multiple fields of research, and also, like you said, as far as production goes, it's a chance for everyone to meet in person and maybe have a private. And this is what, Michael, that you and I, for everyone listening, this is something that we were talking about for everyone out listening. The idea was to have those round tables again at what was once the Academy Awards, was once an award ceremony for the people within the industry. It wasn't supposed to be a thing for people at home to care about. It kind of was, but it was really, hey, we're in the industry and we're going to give each other some awards for doing kind of a good job or doing some new research. And here we are with this idea that, why can't we get back to the round tables, meet people, but also not only provide the lectures and conferences for everyone who's a fan and an independent researcher to come and do what they normally do, but give researchers a night where they can commingle together and connect in a way that might lead to another collaboration, whether it's a show for everybody to learn some great new info on, new interviews, new directions for field research. I think the work that I'm doing right now with Everything Imaginable with Gary and with Conflict Radio, where I co-host, and Not Aliens, for us to go back to the Grand Canyon, for us to, like, again, I'm going to be at America's Stonehenge. I'm not just lecturing there, but that relationship with Dennis Stone, got to introduce me to Scott Walter. I'm pretty sure he would be interested in, I will not ambush him. Here, he's on notice. We're going to, I think, involve a number of people that are, from whether it's a forensic geologist like Scott Walter, or whether it's, a paranormal researcher of every kind. I think that the fields of research that are open right up to very, what we would consider academic archaeologists that are open to, they're not afraid of the truths that they're in front of and that are willing to speak about it. I think the whole sort of it would be one hell of an event for all of us to get together. It's just I think there's different, I know everybody out there listening, there's different points of logistics, and for us it's, can we comfortably, my biggest concern is not that we wouldn't throw a really great event. For everyone listening, it's to create an event where you want to come, where you get to be, where it's comfortable. We're going to just keep talking in V for Vendetta code here. Comfortable and present, and be able to make those connections. I think it's the primer on this. You're lighting the fuse. I'm going to keep kegging up other interviews, and it's something that I think has never. Not only has it not been done, and it should be done, but that opportunity. I mean, we know about the Kemet Institute in Egypt. We know that there are Alexander, and I'm blanking on his last name right now, in Russia. There's Russian institutes that are doing alternative historical research, and we don't forget the pond, we don't cross continents enough to the east and the west. Mohammed Ibrahim in Egypt, I think it'd be great to get, again, virtually or physically, as many people as we can for what would be not only a great ceremony, but for a sharing and a collaborative, a new foundation of research that either institutions of everyone can jump on board with and participate, and have it be a place where all of us, even the home researcher, can apply it to whether it's their own dietary meditation lifestyle to these experiences. And there's help out there like Barbara Charlton. She's an EFT practitioner, and she's in Texas, and she's a friend of mine, and there are people working through experiences with UFOs and abductions. Geraldine Orozco. I mean, there are people who are working with people who have been abducted. These are very serious professionals that don't want to say they were abducted. These are not people who are making things up. These are people who have zero interest in saying, hey, I've seen a UFO, let alone I've been abducted, and let alone I've been traumatized. And there's so many fields of research and interest. I don't think that gets enough light on it. A lot of times I think it's written off, or we don't talk about it because it's like, man, you want to tell people you're not just going to a psychologist, you're going to a therapist because you think you were abducted. I do think that the gamut of what you could be exposed to at a conference like what we're putting on could be pretty significant.
Yeah, you got it. Matter of fact, I think you're right, Jared, that not only could this be just an awards ceremony, but this could be a major conference that went along with it, and we could sell tickets. We could have live lectures by the folks that could show up at a time, and or people from around the world could even put their lectures on via Zoom or whatever. It could turn out to be quite a massive event, not only as far as an awards ceremony, but kind of build up to the awards ceremony at the end, maybe.
Oh, that would be, I think your idea of that being the cumulative event, having a black tie event, being able to really dress up the way we, love to, I think deserve to, wear the top hat if you want, and, have a place to check your overcoat and dress the part and really have some fun with it. I think it's something that we would really enjoy, because having the course of a conference and then to get to something like that with kind of a wind down, I think what's missing from what happens after every great event, I'm just going to give you New Year's as an example, brunch. That's how a real conference needs to end. A massive, incredible ceremony at a final night, but then the next day there should be a final goodbye brunch.
I love it. My word. I think you're right, because there is such normally a major letdown. You build the thing up, you get to the actual event, the speakers are there on point, giving their best talk that they possibly can, and then from that point on, they all disperse the next day from the airport, and they never see each other again. But I love that idea of getting together, kind of debriefing, and maybe what we do is we mix it up around the tables, so you're not sitting next to the same person all the time, and you get to talk with new people.
Oh, no, and it should be a gratuitously, really, not expensive, but it should be just like a very I can think of some beautiful restaurants in town here, but just a really great kind of almost a buffet style brunch where it's very, very good. There's the omelet station, fill in the blank, but you get the interaction of having to move around, but also, the staff and everything else, helping out, but getting people at tables, whether assigned or otherwise, but getting everybody in for, a brunch window from like 10 to 1, where we get that opportunity again. It's that one last, I think the right way to end. When people get married, there's always the gift opening the next day. There's always a brunch. After New Year's, there's New Year's Day. Who doesn't go to New Year's brunch? And then there's Mother's Day brunch and there's Easter brunch. But really, there's always brunch is where it's at. That's how the whole thing capstones. It's really crescendos at the full event with the awards, and it'll be a brilliant night. But for people to sleep in, and it's just rude to start breakfast at 7 a.m. after you've been up till 3. That's why brunch is the way to end this. I'm really stuck on this now that we thought of it.
I'm glad you did. That is just perfect. Indeed. And you know me, I would have my GoPro strapped to my chest so that people can actually go to brunch with us and be there and sit down and see all the food that's there. That would be a lot of fun.
Oh, we can make room for you to have your selfie stick and the GoPro mount, like what's his name, Buck Rogers' little robot.
Yep.
Yeah, and then you could just come equipped. But I do think that the styling this out so that it is organic and people can choose. Like you said, if there's a virtual event where people can sit live lecture, but also see some virtually. I think there's a lot of ways to get a lot of people to participate, and and for some countries, travel's restrictive. Hopefully that would be not an issue by the time that they can travel. If it is, or if they're not able to travel, then for us to be able to include virtual windows for those lectures, I think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
It'll be that part I think is worth it. But yeah, it's just for everyone listening. Michael and I have been talking about this quite longer. The genesis of this is about 4 weeks ago, and barely. And we have done, I think with Mark Eddy's help, and God knows who else we're going to, didn't know they were drafted, but they will be. And I do think that we can throw on an event that will be good for and exciting for a number of, including, I think authors like Dave Brody and and Jim Willis, and I think that there's so many good historical fiction and nonfiction researchers that have done work that are they're almost not even considered in the loop yet. They have, we have respectively just in these last 2 out 13 and 14 books in. Like, Dave Brody just finished Romerica that just got put out, and it's interesting to just consider I think this award ceremony, putting the light on whether it physics or archaeoacoustics, archaeoastronomy, the things that we're finding. Wallace Wagner's book Crossing the Crevasse that just came out, talking about UFOs in the Bible and UFO sightings between Roman armies, and discussing those facts. I think with that research and what we've already heard from there's definitely a crowd on the lecture circuit that everyone always wants to see and always wants to interact with. But getting that new information, your point about getting people to step up and say one more new thing, and I think we have a couple of hard things for us. Now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think it's going to be getting the venue. Adding brunch is not going to be the hard part now. Now it's going to be, I think the one thing that I miss every time I leave an event, the one thing that I always want is to, you can purchase the videos of the event, but I almost feel like it's a disservice to not provide a package to allow the attendees access in its entirety. I think that's one of the things missing, is to certainly get all the hardworking researchers out there some money. And again, this is to continue research and do an investment, and everyone participating, that you are contributing to real research and real advancements of our health, of our consciousness, and of all this information with ufology, all of it, all the sciences behind this, right down to material sciences, to research, is this a geopolymer or is this a natural stone? If it is a natural stone, what built it? All the researchers going on, down to engineered soil and foundations, all the work we're looking at, right down to next gen night vision goggles to investigate UFOs. Coming to a conference like this, and I think putting us on display right now, not that I'm saying I'm verbally processing this is terrible for us, don't shut me up, I'll just spill it, which is, I do think that instead of working out individual, if we can get the amazing people that are going to come, I think that if we do, and just very very specific and guided lectures with everyone, and group conversations, that we record it in a way and produce a post follow-up, which is really more of a mini series. I think we should provide the entire conference in its entirety for those that can't come or want it on record, that it's not just one listener, one video, that we actually maybe package it up and give people a chance to review it as they do their own research and exploration.
I think that's wonderful. You got it. It would be nice to be able to have a nice little, professionally produced package that people could purchase or view later on and see the whole thing. That would be wonderful. As a matter of fact, I thought it would be kind of interesting too, because you hit a point on that I thought was important, is that we can use these awards on an annual basis to kind of reach out to researchers that might not have any attaboys at all, but are doing some important work in a minuscule area that is so important to everyone, that we actually encourage them to continue on, hopefully.
Yeah, I think you're so right, and it is important for people to have. They might not know about easy water, but Dr. Gerald Pollack's work, literally, there's a whole other phase of water. It has to do with your health, folks. It has to do with not just clean drinking water without poisons in it, but the way your cellular structure works. And it's literally new information. Science changes slowly, but here's something that is real, not theoretical, not woo-woo, an actual different conscious state of water. And then you have Dr. Anthony Holland's work, and he's a music professor who kills MRSA and leukemia with vibrational frequencies that he picked up from what everyone loves to quote and talk about Royal Rice machines and Royal Rice work. Anthony Holland's the actual man who picked up the work, and despite everyone like I know that, and I write about that in my book, and then the new work that I'm working on. But Anthony Holland deserves some recognition. That's exactly the kind of people. It's like, hey, did you know someone's actually destroying cancer and working on stuff? And I think some of these people, they don't think we're interested. It's really interesting. The one thing I like about Conflict and some of the other, and our show, I mean, like this thing we do once a month right now, is that people, they don't think, these researchers, they don't think we want to know. They think we're just thinking of UFOs, that the science doesn't cross, that all of it, this is one giant paranormal UFO. This whole thing is one giant pyramid. It's not separate subjects. Somehow our experiences of all of this is overlapping and pulling these people together. And what you're saying, the framework is there to not only create a collective video for people to reference, but it's there that we could create almost a structure in a website where it's not just go to Michael Hall or go to Jared at Not Aliens, but here's this annual conference that has a one-stop shop. You can go off to all these individual amazing researchers, but here's what we've learned at the last conference. Here's what we're publishing on that. I mean, people, and I think one of the missing things from any of these conferences is there are some amazing podcasters. I mean, we're going to be busy, we're going to be there. But I do think that there's a lot of shows that should come that don't get invited. A lot of great podcasters, I'm talking to everybody from Grimerica to Spaced Out Radio. I think that all the different, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but any of them, and I know like George Norrie goes to a lot of stuff, and and of course hosts and is doing the production, but I think there's something to your awards ceremony and giving from a press standpoint where the kudos are deserved with a lot of hardworking podcasters that I don't care if they have a few hundred followers or tens of thousands. Well, that's nice, but the point is these people are out there actually getting the light shined on our research and our work. And I think that, you know, when all those flash photography is going and we're imagining a Hollywood Academy Award, I think for this ceremony, you know, being able to picture all these hardworking podcasters, the ones that want to show up, getting that space so that they can provide that coverage would be, I think, something, again, no one's done.
I think that's wonderful. Yeah, indeed. Because people literally could come from, well, like you and I do. We go to an event ourselves, either as a participant or just as a person who watches. And I literally broadcast live while I'm there anyway to right. my Facebook audience and stuff. So we could have people doing that and set aside a little spot for them that they don't have to like pay for. You know, it's just like a booth area potentially that's got Wi-Fi, you know, yep. and a backdrop that they could use to help promote us.
Yes, absolutely, because, the banner in the background can just say Spaced Out Radio, Not Aliens, Conflict, Everything Imaginable, Dark Hour, Paranormal, fill in the blanks, Cosmic Salon, you know, it could, Three Beards, you know, all of it could be there in the background, but for everybody to be able to show up and actually stand there and chat or ask questions or have people come down the line and be able to answer a couple of questions. And quite frankly, I think for all the formats that, whether it's Nick Pope or Hansen or anybody to show up and be able to, it would just add, I think, to the positive, fun energy of it. So I think that part is always really hard to describe to everyone that I've ever tried to say, you know, for as much as you, like, they're just fanatically in love of the subjects. And I'm like, man, if you haven't been to these conferences, I really can't speak enough to the energy that's there that is so positive and so great and so fun and so addictive. And it really is. It's really a fun thing for people to come do. And I know we're geeking out on logistics, but the truth is that I hope some people out there are just as interested in doing this as us as far as showing up. And I know that off camera, we are talking about this and getting, I think maybe it is a 3-week, once we have a city, that might be interested in hosting us. We really, the logistics of it are just who's coming, who's not, how many conference rooms do we need, and what does that look like? Because the other thing is I'd like to do this as affordably as possible for people coming. I would like to make it as accessible as possible. It's going to be a tough thing right now. There's some freak economics in travel where a lot of flights are very cheap. A lot of places are inexpensive to get to. But I do think, we'll have to look at it and decide what's the most economical ticket we can get people, and what does it look like? How many hundreds or thousands of people can we support physically in place, and then what does it look like to really get people an affordable way into that, so that they can again. And I'm excited. I'm interested in going out and doing the field research, and there are a number of people who spend a lot of time doing really incredible writing work. But to do that writing work and to go into the field, it does cost money and time in a way where I think I don't know, I hope we're not dreaming too far, but the idea of having this award ceremony and the conference and capstoning it with a day after brunch, being able to collectively put all of these people together and have this happen, to get people there so they can invest in their favorite investigators, to whether it's merchandise of books or shirts or whatever is being sold, but for people to get there and be excited that they're not going to be broke by the end of the conference would be amazing.
Indeed. And if we could get, for instance, I'm not saying that we'd have to do this, but if we can get like a city like Edinburgh, Texas behind the project, and be willing to help us with some of their resources, and or a major sponsor. If we got some major,
that would be company. A checkmate.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Then we could spring for some hotel rooms and some plane flights and all that stuff.
Well, what's interesting is it seems like you're a big fan of this city that you were just at. Maybe we should talk to them. Hadn't thought of it.
Oh, they that would be interesting, wouldn't it? Oh my goodness, having an event down there. Oh my, they're you know what? I can talk with, the guy who lives down there is Daniel Allen Jones. He's on their board down there at the city. I'll text him, say, hey, Daniel, we got this weird idea. What would you think of this? I'm just throwing this out there. I will definitely get back to you on that.
That's interesting. Yeah, there's a few places around here. There's a couple places in Wisconsin I can think of, and then odd, but South Dakota, and and again, I'm not being selfish for all those climbers out there. There's some good climbing in South Dakota. So South Dakota is an option also because I feel like they would accommodate the conference well for capacity. But then again, I have I think a really good location option that I'll talk to you about in Florida. And like you said, if there's a city component to this, I do feel that this is probably much more realistic for us to do this maybe still this season. I know Florida, the one thing that was pointed out to me was to not get too close to fall because of the hurricane season, which starts in fall. So at worst case scenario would be somewhere where it's really rainy and flights get canceled.
Yeah.
Probably want to avoid that.
Good point.
But still, yeah, we're getting close to the top of the hour, but I'm willing to brainstorm at least a little bit more on not only the location, but I think the content is whether or not it supports starts on a Wednesday or starts on a Thursday and ends on a Sunday sort of thing. I don't know. In your experience, how has a 4 or 5 day conference gone for you?
Oh, those are. This one in Edinburgh, by the way, was Thursday Thursday night, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It was 4 days. Very, very well paced out that way. You've got a lot more room, and you're not so frantic, I think, as far as those events go. I'm just thinking off the top of my head as well for brainstorming issues. There's always Las Vegas. There's always right next door to Area 51, and my good friend Connie West out there at the Little Alien might be willing to be involved somehow as well. So who knows? We've always got cheap flights.
I'm not opposed to Vegas.
We always got cheap flights and
not opposed
hotels.
to Vegas as long as. Yeah, my issue with Vegas was just simply I had heard that last conference, that 5D conference, was limited in capacity to 200.
Well, that would be something.
I could be wrong.
Yeah, we'd have to check it out, see if. And of course, our venue itself, maybe in a certain setting, it's limited. But if we're going to be doing a conference or something like that, I can't imagine. I understand that Vegas is opening back up. They are aggressively opening back up. So who knows? I'm just throwing that out because of the proximity to Area 51 and that press kind of thing. So who knows?
Oh, I'm very open to that, and to be honest, one of the things that's been on my list of have to do's is after I get to America's Stonehenge in 2 weeks, I am supposed to be doing a preliminary visit to the Grand Canyon because, again, there's a group of very experienced rock climbers that are being put together, part of this team that we're looking at to go. We're not okay. Yes, we are considering the G.E. Kincaid Cave that is, in the canyon that is specifically about the Egyptian ruins, but we're really looking for ancient signs of not 49 or 1800s activity. We're looking for mid-wall, for anyone listening, we're looking for the rock-cut ruins within the Grand Canyon that appear to be ancient. And just reaching those caves, because they're anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 or 4,000 feet off the ground. So we're either descending or ascending, which requires some complexity. So we're doing a preliminary run to the Grand Canyon to look for sites of where we're going to do the work to get there. But Vegas is only 2.5 hours from the South Rim. And, well, I'm not saying kill two birds with one stone, but still, a week in Vegas, splitting that up and doing some exploratory work. I know that the conference would be completely separate, but who doesn't like to go hiking or climbing in Red Rocks? That's just the Shelby Museum. I mean, there's a million things to do in Vegas. But the question is whether or not they would allow us to have. I guess we're going to have to look into that because Area 51, who doesn't want to go there, and that area. And again, it's more about just the amount of activities you can do if you want to step away from the conference. How do you say no to Vegas, right? It's pretty fun.
And talk about a buffet brunch. Oh my God, we could really get together on that one. That'd be fun. Anyway, gosh.
Yep.
We'll take a break and come back. Listen, we've got a whole nother last hour to go here. I don't know if I want. It's up to you whether we want to go another whole hour after this or call it quits at the top of the hour here and stuff. I'll let you be the call here on what you might want to do with the last segment of the show, if anything, and we'll take it from there. What do you think?
Yeah, everybody hold on. There's lots of stuff for us to actually talk about, but now that Michael and I have done gratuitous self-promotion about trying to throw together a really epic gathering and award ceremony and brunch for everyone, we will actually talk some UFO stuff. And the Russians are planning on cloning Scadian warriors from 3,000 years ago DNA. Let's open with that after the break.
Oh, what a teaser you got there. I love it. Well, okay, we'll be right back, folks, with Spaced Out Sunday after this, so don't go away.
Hey, Space Travelers, this is John Resnick, founder of the Tribe and Tribe Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Tribe Charities, just go to tribecharities.org/donate.
Are you an experiencer of something strange that can't be explained? Do you want help finding out what's going on? I'm Ryan Stacy, head of the Experiencer Support Association, otherwise known as TESSA. We've teamed up with Spaced Out Radio to investigate cases filled out in the SOR Sightlines report. We are independent and there's no cost to what we do. All we need is your experience. Let's find out what's happening together on the SOR Sightlines report.
We are scouring the world for the most intriguing stories of your day. Take the time to read up on the SOR Newswire, where our team, led by Captain Shirk, will deliver to you some of the best paranormal and supernatural news, along with some stories that will blow your mind from the weird to the wacky. It's the news outside the news that piques interest, and that's what we're looking to deliver to you. The SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott, and I'm bringing you the Woo every Monday through Friday on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going all out to bring you the strangest, oddest stories and subjects I can find for your entertainment. Why? Because when we hit peak Woo, I know I've done my job. So come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com, 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, and together, my friends, we own the night.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and we have some cool swag for you to pick up. All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the story you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
If you like it hot, real hot, then heat up your meals with Bumblefoot hot sauce.
Get your Bumblefoot hot sauce today. The sauce, Bumblicious, and the 4 million Scoville unit. Bumble, we're going in hot, real hot, coming out even hotter.
Keep the milk nearby. And tantalize your taste buds tonight.
Bumblefoot hot sauce, available now at kajans.com.
Hello, Space Travelers. It's me again, Carl. Don't forget to join the Space Travelers Club for just $5 a month. And follow Spaced Out Radio on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Our Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Our Facebook page is Spaced Out Radio Show. Our archives are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Come woo it up with Spaced Out Radio today. Bye!
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Looking for creative ways to get your company out in the public? How about advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Our sales department is waiting to hear from you, and we can work around any budget. From commercial spots to banners to special promotions, there are many opportunities to get your name and product out to our SOR listeners. For a price guide and more information, please contact us at sales@spacedoutradio.com.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune into SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi, this is Amber Becker, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/spacedoutradio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
For the price of one cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey everyone, I'm John Edwards.
And I'm Stacey Edwards. Together we're taking over Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio, where we're going to bring our own experiences of the paranormal and talk to the best people we can find to help bring you answers to your strange tales.
We're here to entertain your need for weekend. Woo! So tune us in at spacedoutradio.com starting at 9:06 Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, where we can all get a little spooky together.
Spaced Out Saturday nights right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Welcome to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Sunday. I am your host, Michael W. Hall. Thanks for being with us. We welcome back everyone listening in on our terrestrial affiliates, WQEE 99.1 FM in Union, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 in New Orleans. On the digital side, we are also on Revolution Radio. And don't forget, you can always check our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do us all a favor and hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you, including rocking out to some Bumblefoot and shopping at our Spaced Out Radio store, catching up on Captain Shirk's SOR Newswire, and so much more. And we are back for the third and final hour of Spaced Out Sunday with our good buddy Jared Murphy, and we are talking, we left a little cliffhanger at the end there where you were mentioning, Jared, something really unique about the Russians cloning something historical.
Oh, yeah. Something I've been talking about for a long time, and this is coming to fruition for us to all get excited about, and I had been describing it for a number of years as nano-archaeology, which it's not, and quite seriously, when you have like in reference to UFO spacecraft, we have that aluminum part that was found under an intact in situ mammoth in Europe that they said, well, it's a part of a Messerschmitt. It's not an alien. It's not a UFO part. It's just it accidentally went under there after it got stuck way under the bison or the mammoth because the Messerschmitt crashed and it was softer, and then we have the Russians finding, as they're looking for gold, little tiny screws, gold, basically nanoparts, and at a minimum, again, metallurgy, we can't date stone and metal, but we can at a minimum say, hey, this object is 22,000 to over 200,000. I think, the numbers on it are up to 2 million years old. 200, so it was 20,220 something or 2 million or more, and all these nanoparts were found in an area when they were looking for gold deposits. And again, we have all these odd items, but the idea of engineered soil that I first started preaching about is to explain to people that whether it's North Africa, whether it's Australia, whether it's America or Eastern Europe or North America, there are indications that there is soil that's not just good for growing. It has piezoelectric properties. It has a number of different elements that make it interesting if you were building buildings or cities, that you're very walking on them would allow you a connectivity to plants, animals, each other, whether it be communication or healing or you name it, in a not very woo-woo, in a real way, a very engineered, terraformed society. And nano-archaeology, where sediments and like the flora and fauna discoveries of Doggerland, just recently published, they have sifted through saltwater settlements of sunken lands, Scotland, and we've talked about this, Scotland and Ireland and all of that area of Europe was called Doggerland. And even 4,000 to 6,000 years ago, in very dynastic times, there was a lot more land connected to France and Great Britain and Scotland and Ireland that was above water. Now, 8,000 years ago, there was a lot of it, but they are actually publishing in mainstream academia that the sedimentary remains, the nano-sedimentary remains of flora and fauna of Doggerland over 8,000 years old, they are confidently saying, hey, just in these granules, we have extracted this information from under seawater. And I just, in our messenger app here on Zoom, I just sent you an article if you want to pull it up. I don't know if you want to share it or if you... because I have something else that I as you're pulling that up, I will tell everyone an article just came out in Science Daily, which I sent you the link for the Ancient Origins one, because this is just the premise. When I wrote It's Not Aliens, Worse, It's Us Discovering Our Lost History, which has a new edition coming out in the next few weeks. So as much as I would love for everyone to buy it, either buy it and wait for a bit of a long delivery, like a few weeks here, or please come to notaliens.com and for now just get a ticket to my virtual conference or come to America's Stonehenge. But right now, I was originally going to write my book about governments finding really, really old mummies, which bring us back to the Paracas. And the Paracas had the history of being the oldest mummies on Earth. 9,000 was the oldest preserved mummy that we had found, except for those red-bearded mummies in Mongolia. And my theory of my fictional story that I was going to write prior to knowing that the truth was stranger than fiction, like where our disclosures are going, that I was going to have governments bring back ancient mummies. And I've been told about 1,000 times to actually write the fiction on this. But the premise was governments would reanimate, reclone the oldest mummies on Earth because they were the closest to ancient high technology. And then those people would guide them to those sites and those technologies. And here we are. Did you find the article?
You know, it's not popping up for me.
Okay.
Where I can read it. Sorry about that.
No, that's fine. I sent it in your messenger, so I don't know if the link worked or not. If you click on that link. Yeah. But I'm going to read it quick for everyone. So while you're listening, this is an Ancient Origins article. And and I won't read the whole article. Here it is. Updated April 18th, 2021. Russians want to clone ancient Skadian warriors. The Russian defense minister has announced his plans for the DNA cloning of ancient Siberian warriors and their horses. The ancient Tanug burial, and I might be mispronouncing that, so I apologize to everyone. Located, it's Tunnug, Tanug is what I'm saying, but burial site located in the Valley of the Kings in the Republic of Tuva in Siberia holds the remains of 3,000-year-old Skadian warriors. Now, Sergei Shoigu, Russia's defense minister and one of Vladimir Putin's closest advisors, has disclosed his desire to use DNA cloning to recreate an army of noble warriors. I'm just going to stop there. Literally the premise of my book and why I started doing, I was going to do research and do historical fiction. I knew that there was something unique about the Paracas elongated skulled people, that they were born that way, and that there are all these unique mummies on Earth. And I thought, well, there's a lot of different clandestine organizations, and I thought the plot of the book, everybody wants a trilogy, and I thought, let's talk about reanimating these people and using their stored genetic memories. And again, I'm a history fan. I'm a quantum physicist. I read In Search of Schrodinger's Cat. I've always been fascinated by these a broad spectrum of historical facts and interests. And so here was the premise of my book. And here's an article today, 5 years later, and the government is going to clone warriors. And I'm like, do I have copyright on this? So on that note, and how important it is for people who don't think, here I am talking about, hey, two things everyone should be interested in. It's not a mummy, it's not gold, although gold nanoparts are really important, so is aluminum. That shouldn't exist. That's, 800 years before aluminum at a minimum. But nano-archaeology talking about having to dig in the sediments, but Göbekli Tepe throws off all of human history. But it's not just one tepe, there are 6. And it's not just there, it's like off the coast of Cuba, that city that's 2,300 feet deep. And there's been some shifting and catastrophic events, but the last time that city was above water was over 50,000 years ago. And we had that volcanic thing maybe 60 to 75,000 years ago. People, they seem to be pretty sure about 75, but I feel like there's we kind of wing a lot of time on the ranges. And so here we have, fast forward, the Russians are considering extracting ancient DNA, and totally independent from ScienceDaily.com. Here's the title, April 15th, 2021, just a couple, not too long, just a week ago. Neanderthal nuclear DNA retrieved from sediments helps unlock ancient human history. Now, you and I, we talked about this just a few weeks ago about, I think I even mentioned then, I'm like, hey, nano-archaeology, it sounds crazy, but okay, here's a preview of my lecture, part of it, coming up on May 1st. I'm trying to communicate to people, being a historical remodeler, being a builder, and someone who has to work with engineers, someone who understands how to not only engineer, but I have to then go do it. I have to go make sure that when I cut these beams, I don't drop a house on someone's head or a whole building. And that's important, to look at it and the engineering of it. But to create the foundations and do the sedimentary work at this level, when you build a road, one of the things I'm doing is I'm showing people photographs of Minneapolis right now and St. Paul. We have a tremendous amount of road construction. And a lot of people may have seen this before, where when they jackhammer up a paved road, let's just say it's concrete. Well, what they do is they make a big pile of all the old parts of concrete. And a lot of times you'll see rebar, which is reinforcement, because we don't make concrete like people used to make. And what they do is they try to keep crushing up the pieces. And we're talking pieces that are like 600 pounds, 500 pounds, 100 pounds, more, big, smaller, even 1,000, they're just chunks of road that have been just pushed into a pile. And what they do is they send them down a grinding belt, and you go from having what was once, let's just call it 1 mile of road, and they bust it into smaller and smaller and smaller pieces where they take the rebar out and they recycle it. And then the road literally gets crushed back into bits all the way down to basically sand. And what you end up with is this going from a medium gravel class 5, like your average dirt road size chunks, down to what is basically brand new concrete sitting in a giant gray pile. And you look at that, and when we think of Humpty Dumpty, right now, it sounds like, even though we know that every bit in that pile was once a road, we do not look at that pile and think we're going to piece it back together. And that's literally what we're going to be able to do in the future of archaeology. That should make a lot of people nervous, because it'll look like Merlin, it'll look like sorcery, to be able to piece back together using quantum computing. The processing power, the point of having a quantum computer is the speed. And when you read off what you just heard, but when we read off Neanderthal nuclear DNA retrieved from sediments and the flora and fauna discovered in Doggerland from sediments, we are talking microscopic granules. And now, and continuing with this secondary article so we can talk about this and be not so geeky and nerdy for those trying to go to sleep at this hour, wake up. Governments are trying to clone dead warriors. That should get you awake right now. But here's a little bit more from it. Researchers have retrieved Neanderthal nuclear DNA from cave deposits in northern Spain and southern Siberia, yielding new clues to the population history of Neanderthals. With the advent of nuclear DNA analysis of sediments, similar studies at other sites can provide new insights into the deep human past that we do not rely on in the discovery of bones and teeth. No more waiting around for the dentures. The field of ancient DNA has revealed important aspects of our evolutionary past, including our relationships with our distant cousins. But, okay, let me skip ahead. The point is that we've relied on DNA in bones and teeth, which store DNA, and they're protected from the environment. But such skeletal remains are exceedingly rare, leaving large parts of human history inaccessible, which is something I talked about from the beginning. For everyone who's been following us, me, the research, the reality is that the academic hubris, I'm over it, I'm just saying it for what it is, to assume we even have a close to complete human fossil record, and to base human evolutionary history on morphology. That requires you to look, no matter how good you are at looking at bones, and damn, there are some really good paleoanthropologists and some people out there that can stare at bits of old bones and say, well, this looks like a human bone and it's not an elephant bone. And there's a lot of different ways that morphology works. But no matter what, we have pieced, like Australopithecus, all the different Australias, and the different forms of what we're calling ancestral humans, or human Homo erectus, all of them. The problem is that we're seeing, and have always seen, which is what Michael Cremo writes about, is the simultaneous, even if those morphology identified bones are of these, whether it's Neanderthal or Denisovan or whatever, they're going off of it by looking at the bones, not any DNA work. They're just looking at the bones going, that's not a monkey. That is definitely a pre-human, a proto-human. That's definitely this particular kind of Homo erectus. They're literally making it up. And I know, I'm not saying this to be mean. I'm just saying that it's good to work with what you got. But here we are, for the first time. We should almost get super excited about this, but here we are to fill in the gaps. Back to it. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology, Max Planck as in Schrodinger's cat, as in quantum science, they have developed new study methods for enriching and analyzing human nuclear DNA from sediments. Amen to everyone. Get up and skip tomorrow, because the evolution, the speed by which, whether we're on Spaced Out Radio, my show, Conflict, whatever shows you're watching, the stuff you want a disclosure, okay, I'll finish the paragraph. Analyzing human nuclear DNA from sediments, which are abundant at almost every, we're not talking about a needle in a haystack. We're talking about walking up to a haystack that has so many needles in it. All you got to do is grab the hay and your hand's been pricked a million times, because there's that many sediments in any needle, in any pile of hay. It's saying that they're abundant at almost every archaeological site. Until now, only mitochondrial DNA has been recovered from archaeological sediments, but this is of a limited value for studying population relationships. The advent of nuclear, this is something I've been talking about, the advent of nuclear DNA analysis of sediments, nano-archaeology, folks, provides new opportunities. I added that part. Jumping back into the article. Sediments provides new opportunities to investigate the deep human past. So, without going further, they analyzed sediments from 150 sediment samples from 3 caves, and we can get into what they figured out. But what this is this is on Science Daily. This is dated April 15th, 2021. The source is the Max Planck Institute for Evolutionary Anthropology. But what's important about this, and what's important about what I just read off about Scavian warriors being cloned, I'm going to write that 3-book fictional historical piece. I'm getting back on that. I'm unfortunately in the middle of writing 2 more books, but and our updated version of It's Not Aliens is coming out. But is this not the trippiest crap you've heard in a while, Michael?
Oh, man.
Isn't this crazy?
It is, and it all comes down to your previous studies about engineered soil. The whole idea that they are now nano capability here in the studying of the sediments is fascinating to me,
Yeah.
and what they can do with it. You're in the right field.
Yes, and I don't. Here's what's exciting. Everyone has genetic and stored memories. Everyone has insight. What's exciting about this? It's not just yours or mine or a certain expert's opinion. It's getting it out. Literally, that every listener who's interested that wants to talk about it over the lunch cooler tomorrow, or over their Zoom cooler, whatever. But whatever it is, it's a chance for everyone to talk in a way that connects us, to open up eyes, and young people who go into the field who might get accidentally brainwashed by a more standard system. This conversation is something that allows all of us to see our past and our future more clearly, and that is a benefit to everyone. This is one of those things now where that road that you can't fathom from a pile of dust, you're like, you will never rebuild that exact road. No, with nano-archaeology, being able to put two pieces of particle back together to form a piece of rubble that then forms another chunk of road that ultimately forms the road is not impossible. The missing materials sciences, the metamaterials that were on these structures, the piles, the billions, the trillions, the quadrillions of sediment in the North African desert, how many bones, how many people, how much engineered soil, how much plastic. The Romans talked about flexible glass. How about that? Not flexible plastic. They talked about flexible glass. That's a thing. Just like the Antikythera device, they find that and they're like, had we not found it, the quote was from the archaeologists, had we not found it, we wouldn't have thought the Antikythera device was possible. And then, of course, they go on immediately, not that particular archaeologist, but the next thing that comes out of standard academia and news is, and they do it to sell and create info and clicks, but it's the first one. That just drives me nuts. It's the first one. It's the only one. Well, it's the only one you found. It was rusty. It was on the bottom of the ocean. What do you think they did with all the other metals that they ever had access to when they wanted a pointy spear? There's a lot of dynastic peoples that are really just survivor cultures from either the Younger Dryas or even tougher. They're tribes of humans, groups of humans, not even tribes, groups of humans that survived after they lived alongside a much more advanced human race that could terraform the planet, connect us through the soil, not just for growing, a self-maintaining, self-replicating terra preta, which is also in Europe as Chernozems and other biochars, ancient biochars. Imagine if you could find a Göbekli Tepe covering millions of miles. That's terra preta. But we don't care about soil because there's no gold, no jewelry, no little golden monkeys, no pyramids, no mummies. I mean, I'm into King Tut, but I don't need one more article about it. Right now, with this kind of information, we have the ability to reconstruct, I just said a road. How about reconstructing a whole human village city? Not just a low-tech one, but a high-tech one. We might be able to, and what's weirder, and this would be really crazy, is I'm giving you the direct example of, okay, well, you ground up a road, and then supercomputers, quantum computers, they're not even super, they're just normal quantum computers, and nanobots go out and they sift through that pile, that, million-ton pile of dust and of concrete dust, and they virtually construct that road back together, right down to the paint on it and the dirt and the chip marks. Like they put it all back together. But then what if that road had a prior life as a prior road? And what if there's statistical probabilities that the road could be reconstructed to its even second or third reincarnation? What if the statistical models can then move from the road that was just rebuilt to, well, actually, that crushed up road was a crushed up road on a county road over there, and it was mile 3, not mile 2, and it was in this configuration. I mean, we're talking about being able to reconstruct maybe not just its last manifestation. Maybe we're able to say, can you send out a series of nanobots, and can you rebuild with the material available? Are we able to rebuild the people or the fiber? Like, okay, so when right now, I'm going to give the new city that was found in Egypt as an example. Everyone's excited about this new city. Even though Sarah Parcak and Global Explorer, well, pre-Global Explorer, Sarah Parcak literally says, hey, let's use satellites, and she wins the TED Prize just 3 years ago. And I'm looking forward to interviewing her one of these days. I hope I get to. But, you know, she found a zillion things under the sands in Egypt. And so here we are. Everyone's excited about this new Egyptian city. And you have a lot of walls in the city that are like 5 feet, 8 feet, 6 feet. I mean, I haven't been there. It's a new disclosed discovery that they're willing to put out there for everyone to know about now, because of course they want people to go. It's one new thing. But from that layer down, you send out a bunch of nanobots and you tell them to reconstruct everything they find. Well, they reconstruct a bath towel that was accidentally, you know, like slipped in a burial from the 1960s because somebody got buried there in the 1960s. It rebuilds what appears to be a sheik or a Bedouin from from like 1900. It does something from the 1700s. It rebuilds a pot that somebody, you know what I mean, et cetera, where whatever's left in that untouched in situ layer of information in sediment, does it strictly dynastically date? So just imagine a hoarder house of very random stuff, and magically you don't even have a complete picture. Your best worst case scenario is you now have a pile of stuff from 1960s or 70s that is kind of like floating into the sedimentary layers that are above where they dug down to the structure. Then to the structure they reconstruct a Roman sword, a Greek sword, a Greek shield, a traded item from India, a pot that was definitely local, but then another one of those really high tech that every Egyptologist ignores and tries to explain away. And honestly, guys, it's just embarrassing. Stop doing it. But there are these high tech, you know, like an inch neck, like, you know, 2 inches wide neck, and a giant vase that comes down to like machine perfectly. You know, you can see the lathe marks, and they're like, well, you know, Egyptologists explaining it away with sand and dust and like that. That's just not how this happened, folks. You just ask Christopher Dunn, ask any engineer. But imagine the nanobots in this entire city field that was just found. Now some of the dust is mummies, some of the dust is the chemicals that were in the mummies, and so you're able to at every level know that this mummy is reconstructed and was a girl, was 30, had cancer, had cocaine in her. And this is mind-bending, right? This sedimentary nuclear history and the DNA evidence. And then what happens when you go below the mud-bricked dynastic Egyptian village, and below is the remnants of cymatic polygonal weathered-away stone? Because quite frankly, I'm trying to put this more on people's... It's hard enough right now. We all think, oh, the biblical flood. There was definitely something that happened. Oh, it was the Younger Dryas. We just accepted, just like it's been a hot minute that we're talking about the Younger Dryas. But then, you know, Brad Olson, some other people, you know, they like to point out the volcanic eruption 75,000 years ago. And I keep pointing to that city off the coast of Cuba strictly as a mental starting point where you go, well, that's 2,300 feet deep. And it wasn't above ground. The guesstimation, I think, is at least 50,000 years ago. And if that's true, well, that sure kind of starts to date to that volcanic event and or something around that volcanic event. And then we have Denisovan and Neanderthal and mystery humans all mixing together around 60,000 years ago. So is the weathering period of these giant constructions that were repaired in the last 12,000 years and dynastically worshipped, are these remnants from the lentils of Stonehenge to Egypt to Sacsayhuaman and Tiwanaku and Pumapunku. Are all of those polygonal constructions and stone spheres elements that have weathered for literally 60,000 years, 50,000 years? Then the Younger Dryas kicks us even harder, and a very, very small fractional high-tech human group still survives that, and the last time dynastic human beings see them is the reconstructure, the Atlantean group of people, the Atlantean group being the culture that, in at least Solon's description, was at least 10 cities, not one. It's a group of the last visually seen, interacting, advanced humans that maybe made a decision that, like, look, the Earth isn't, we're not in our brilliant, maybe in the math and the science that they still had available after all these falls, they retreat and leave these dynastic peoples to take over these structures. And with sedimentary, with this level of, again, really nano-archaeology, what's going to happen here is a revolution in not just human paleoanthropological history, but because here it is, they're looking at Neanderthal and Denisova, and nobody will touch the Paracas. I mean, what a bunch of wusses. I mean, seriously. But what's going to happen now in virtual reconstruction of a site and literally wiping away the layers down to the oldest, and then you're watching maybe as a computer like an opposite going Tetris, where as everything's rebuilt, as all the sediments within an area get rebuilt and put together, or they're doing it in plats, like every square kilometer is a different plat, and so they're like, I have half of a windshield. I don't know why I have half of a windshield, and then somebody like 10 miles away doing another plat goes, I have the other half of your windshield over here. And then now you're even mapping wind patterns over the periods of epochs of geological, like, jet streams. Is that too far for everyone at this hour?
Boy, that's almost too far for me, but I am following you. That is fascinating to me. It's almost as if nano technology is allowing us to time travel backwards.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, the way you explain it is very good. And it's so amazing to think that the Akashic record, or whatever you want to call it, could be restored and studied in that regard.
And take the things, like, here's one that people will get in trouble with, take like the Ark of the Covenant, or the Copper Scrolls from the Dead Sea, and the Antikythera device, and how about this one? How about a true nano? I don't know how much would be destroyed through smelting, but what if we could determine that every dynastic metal from every period was really a melted down supercomputer or a hard flash drive? I mean, there's been some jokes about someone's going to walk up to the pyramid and, plug in, and the question is, what if the repurposed dynastic, King Tut's actual coffin is all gold. Well, where the hell did they get the gold? Did they melt coins? Did they melt bracelets? Did they melt vases? Did they just ore it and just go grab it from a mine? Or is it actually a reconstruction because it was a combination of various plundered items? And how far statistically could nano-archaeology rebuild the original pieces? So we can always respect every culture and say, we want to know your history, we want to know your people, every human life on this planet. I do think there's a connectivity, there's this concern. I keep hearing this I think it's an incredibly naive and ignorant statement to say that we need less humans. I think that in this nano-archaeology, we're going to find that the human population was worldwide. It was much larger than it is now. And I think it actually, it's a joke. America alone makes enough food to feed everyone. It's not an issue of overpopulation. if we took every human right now, 8 billion people, and give them an acre, you could put them in a couple Texases. Every human being on Earth could have an acre of land, and they would fit in about 2 Texases, which means the entire planet is unoccupied. But we do currently make enough food to feed everyone. And there are, unfortunately, because we are in safe mode, and there's only, my opinion, I mean, my researchable, backable, my opinion is that if you're only 10 to 15% conscious, but you have unlimited power and money, and you have an idea that the Earth should have like 1 billion or 500 million people, that is not conducive to experimentation and the power of the human collective consciousness. I do believe the complexities of the universe are revealed to us, not because we have just individual smart people, but because of the very well mainstream proven existence of a collective consciousness. And for people who aren't valuing the guy banging rocks still in the woods, that if we were all wiped out tomorrow and our computers were gone, there would be some archaeologists in the future going, ooh, look, Aeolus and Aeolus. I mean, they were very primitive. Well, what about the Antikythera Apple computer? Oh, that was the first one. We found one. It was one.
Good point.
You know?
Yeah.
So I think it's a very important point that we have a dialogue. There's a narrative out there that's saying, you know, we could do with less people. I think we could do with less like medieval people on the planet. But as far as total collective human RAM, I think people who are unaware in the powers that be, I think they need to do a little more research beyond their immediate needs or beyond their consistent habitual power structure, and understand that a lot of the technologies and a lot of the medical benefits that they think they're enjoying, I would try to sell the point that collective human consciousness is where it is, because every human mind is valuable. Even if you don't value that individual's experience on this planet, I think that every human mind is contributing to this collective consciousness and this awakening. And I'm not just saying that to say that. I know it sounds cliche to say every human's valuable, but we are. But we're available. We're valuable to each other in ways I don't think we realize. And for those of you out there being sarcastically cynical, no, I don't mean just plug you in like the Matrix. You know, you're not just a battery. You know, and I do. You know, this revolution, and the revelations that are coming from this level of knowledge. I mean, for all those people into botanical sciences, I mean, there's some people just geek out over flora and fauna. We don't have a complete fossil record, and they're able to extract the flora and fauna from saltwater sediments, tens of thousands of years old.
Wow.
And here we are doing DNA analysis, and we're not relying on teeth. I mean, people are they're like, well, you know, it's a really old mummy. We're not going to get anything out of it. Well, not only are we going to get something out of it, but it means that something I've been working on for archaeological work, because Jennifer Dale and I are, we're planning some work in South America. So there's 3 things. There's America's Stonehenge, there's the Grand Canyon of South America, and I hope everybody gets excited about it. Just, you know, you can support me through the site just right now, do virtual events. And then come to our big conference where we do an award ceremony. But right now, the plan, I'm so sorry if everyone's listening to the train again. We clearly have a morning train going by, so if you can hear that, can you hear that?
It's not bad at all. Good. No problem.
Oh, okay, good. So then, yeah, I think that I just blanked. Where were we?
You were about ready to talk about the connectivity of consciousness and the fact that we can all benefit from one another's existence, I think.
Yeah, and I do think that that's in this revolution of this DNA technology and determining flora and fauna, and for those into that, you know, the biology of things, we don't have a complete fossil or any of those records. And I think, again, I don't think people should be scared of the questions. They should be scared of not wanting to ask them. And wanting, the desire to be settled in what we know and say it's been all worked out is, as mad as a teacher gets when a student shrugs their shoulders and go, I don't know. I mean, that's not remotely acceptable. And so for me, one of the most frustrating things is to have, I am very defensive about stating that archaeologists need to be paid to fail. They need to be paid to not find what they're supposed to find. And if they don't find anything, they need to have seasonal archaeological work funded. There are a lot of very successful entrepreneurs that like adrenaline rushes and are well capable of funding. Here's an interesting thing about supporting small economies. You would not believe how valuable it would be for you to, this is where I was going. I knew even 20 years ago, I was fascinated by the fact that they had developed technology that before they would dig down to a body and they would brush it all off and they wanted the bones and they would take what they could, but all that sediment has melty body in it. And so, what are you going to do with all the sand? Well, they started forensically keeping what was at and below the site to analyze what was in it, but they don't really know what to do with it. But I had sorted out, and this was before I was going to do ancient engineered soil and the masonry, the foundational structure of polygonal constructions. Not only are they not level, but it's not that they're just cut into bedrock. I have a feeling that, my theories range from the solid material that these polygonal constructions are sitting on, are possibly sitting on what's really pre-compacted up to 100% material that could be 20, 30, 40, 50 feet plus thick. And it could be different layers of material that could be from 1,000 miles away. And we need to look at the foundations of these structures and the soil at every layer moving out from every polygonal building. Every polygonal construction has not only engineered terra preta for growing great food and piezoelectric, but deeper down are those sedimentary, what's called metamaterials. So whether they're really tiny or really big, metamaterials are structures that are specifically placed in and around and under buildings to cause them to be muted for earthquakes. But the same frequency, energy, technology people would also use it for connectivities, sending, receiving messages, being literally connected by just walking around barefoot or on the ground, or having your pineal gland open. There are so many, these are not woo-woo things. These are actual, if you have a terraformed planet, you can do this. And to indicate, so right now, one of my fascinations is, so we know terra preta is in Central America, we know it's in South America, we know it's in North Africa, we know it's all over the earth. Well, let's do an ancient engineered profile from every desert, everywhere we go. And that means that as you dig out a site, if it's not hard enough already to dig a site out layer by layer, but what do you do then with the barrels and barrels? And for anyone out there who should invest in a barrel company, but we would have to keep every layer and like every 55-gallon barrel of soil and material from every grid point would need to be kept. So just like I said, nanobots and sedimentary research of, nano-archaeology, 1 kilometer square of the Sahara over here, and then they're 20 kilometers away and they can't figure out why there's a windshield, and yet the other half of the windshield's over there, and they can tell each other. So as we dig down, we have to not look at those elements at the nano scale and say, well, there's nothing here for me to find. Where even in early archaeological days, they would dig up bones that they're like, we don't want the bones, they literally would say, we're looking for gold, we're looking for statues, and they would throw the bones out. So then everyone's like, oh my gosh, they throw out the bones, and we're like, oh shit. And then now, here's the idea of going back at very rich archaeological sites and going, we threw away the mushy body melt. Like, we didn't know we were going to be able to do that research. Crap. And then now it's, every sedimentary object is nano recoverable. Their clothing, their wardrobes, their jewelry, every age, weapon, cooking utensil, their whatever it is, we're going to be able to maybe reconstruct it beyond, like if you reconstruct, for instance, say someone had sheep and they had sheep during the 50 years they lived at a ranch. Well, what if everyone at that dynastic period, dynastic people are, to me, are, for everyone listening, are always people that are just people who are looking at, they've gone into a site that was highly advanced, megalithic constructions, they've adapted it, they've made it their own. Those are dynastic people. Mayans, Egyptians, Olmecs, Toltecs, just Harappan maybe, just cultures that we think were origin cultures, but like even the Sumerians, people that came to areas that there was already existing ancient weathered constructions, and they just made it their own. So imagine there's a 50 sheep farm, and 50 years they've been making all their clothing. Well, every time they were done with something, and maybe it turned into a rag, and then after it was a rag, or maybe it was, cut up into a blanket, and then eventually it just got old and torn up, and they always have, archaeologists love garbage pits. So let's just say that farm, like a lot of farms in our country, they had garbage pits, and they find those, whatever was left thrown there, the blankets, the sweaters, whatever. But what if they can't, again, nano-archaeology, just putting that blanket back together, those items, that would be amazing. But what if they were able to identify which sheep they came from and how many generations and which sheep for every piece, and then reconstruct the sheep? I mean, this is like endless, the possibilities of where we're going with this. And I'm excited to talk about it with people. I have burned a little time on this, but I don't know if I should stop.
Wow,
Sorry.
no, that is really a great explanation of the whole process that I had no idea that is now possible. And you're saying, and it all started with the idea that the Russians were going to clone these ancient warriors, at the top of the hour here. I can't imagine what they would, now if they actually did that, let's just take that one example, actually cloned an individual or an organism, that person is not going to have any memory or any idea of who they are, would they?
So I write about that in my book, and I've talked a lot about genetic memory. So we've done studies that date back even 20 years that prove, we've done it with lesser creatures, that we've been able to prove that memories are passed. As usual, we started with traumatic memories. I don't even want to know how they did it, but they were able to pass on traumatic memories from worms to baby worms, and they were able to prove that the memory of an experience happened. So I think a lot of the times the explanation, this is where paranormal crosses over into mystical, crosses over into spiritual, crosses into, this is not to devalue anyone's spiritual or woo-woo experience or what. And again, I say it in the most loving and kind way, for everyone has a different experience of the blinky box. And in this case, what it means is that your collective thoughts of, I used to be Cleopatra, you're never Bill the, but I always joke that you're never Bill the poop scooper at the zoo from the Roman era. You're always Mark Antony. You're never the guy who is the garbage collector, right? But there are people who go to EFT, go to different kinds of paranormal counseling, and they will describe being Bill the poop guy and being in a ranch or being at a farm. And I think a lot of times people think, I'm someone who has a lot of stored memories. Well, I theoretically think that it's more that you have genetic stored memories, not just of past your lives, but of others through that collective human consciousness. That consciousness itself exists within what some people are familiar with, Carillion photography, which, and by the way, not all Carillion photography is created equal, but the idea that there's this magnetic aurora and field around you, but that memory, it's been theorized, not just by me, but by others throughout the last couple hundred years, that possibly your memories, your existing memories, are actually stored within this magnetic field around you, and that there's also a collective human consciousness. So is it possible that those genetic memories are not only internal and stored within your DNA, which, by the way, Harvard scientists in 2008 store I wrote about this in the book. They store a 55,000 word book on DNA, on sequencing, DNA sequencing. They basically turn 4 different nodes into ones and zeros, and they store a 55,000 word book. Michael, here's where they're at now. Now, in an ounce of DNA, they can store over a terabyte. And at this point, that was 1.5 years ago information. So you can basically take all human knowledge and everything that we're talking about, right down to building at least the outline that we created for the first quantum computer, which Australians did about 3 years ago. I remember the news on that. You can now basically take 2 elephants. Now we have everyone in 2 Texases. Well, you can take 2 elephants, and it can still be elephants and hungry and be elephants and roll around in the dirt and walk around. And you can store all of the human knowledge basically in 2 elephants.
Oh,
or
man.
a whale. That would be everything.
Yeah,
everything we know. In every language and everything. So now the idea of traumatic memories, but also what we describe in our experiences as paranormal of a past life or an experience or a memory, are many questions. Are we grabbing it from the collective consciousness, which is holding the RAM of every human experience as the backup, so that if you wanted to reanimate a human, the mystified reincarnation, is it actually true that through the correct, fully conscious human network that we could give birth and reanimate every living memory of a particular person could literally be rebirthed, not as a forgotten memory, but could you clone someone? My historical fiction would have been that you would restore a mummy, so you would clone, and we don't know how to access at our current level of technology that collective human consciousness. So this person would have dreams and would have a handler, is my thought. And fiction aside, I think that you clone someone from that period, and then they're going to have those dreams and those flashes, and if you teach them the correct meditations and give them a positive gene expression, a very popular term in the paleo world. And again, paleo is not a diet, it's a lifestyle that includes and says, hey, look, the human body can eat the following items. When you're hungry, eat. When you're thirsty, drink. But if you eat from this circle, you're going to have a gene expression that's going to make you feel amazing all day long and all night. And you're not going to be hangry ever, and you're not going to be moody and tired. But the reality of doing that, also in reference to like very consciousness activating meditations like Wim Hof method, where you're actually controlling your actual autonomic nervous system, not just for inflammatory response or heating and cooling yourself, but for consciousness exploration. You know, you could bring back one of these people and then they could say, well, I used to live over here, maybe in this village. They might be able to narrow it down or see it in a dream, or say, well, we always stayed away from the Reconstruction or the Atlanteans. We always stayed away from them. You know, if you animate a 9,000-year-old Practice skull mummy, are they going to remember that, well, we're very old people and we didn't used to live here, but we're basically the Amish of Peru. We used to live in the Caucasus region, as you know from our genes. You know, we used to live in basically Russia. And, you know, well, we were really advanced and we screwed everything up. So we thought we'd get high, move to the beach, and live in Peru because we were done with technology. I mean, that could be their answer.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating stuff to think that that's even possible. But talk about the cross between paranormal and scientific. This is what's happening right now. You know,
and I think everyone deserves a voice, and it's super important that people don't get discouraged or get defensive or worried that people aren't going to believe them. If you didn't, like, again, perfectly normal person didn't want to be abducted, now they're abducted and now they're going to some therapy for it, or talking about it very rarely, but they like, I don't want to be abducted, I don't want to know anything about that. Or they're having a paranormal experience that they think is either a ghost or an experience of a past life or something, and they're not the people who think of stuff like that. But the only people who are open and loving and kind enough to explain it to them are they use the terms paranormal, they use the term UFO, they use the term, whatever it is that might be foreign or kind of nails on the chalkboard to them because it's too far out there for them or woo-woo, or they're, the people who are in each of those fields, there's no way this is separate. There is no way that paranormal, spiritual, UFO, or any of these other alternative sciences and researchers, we're not, like my title, Not Aliens, is so you can get to the damn website and remember how to get there. It's not that it's not aliens. It's not I'm objecting to aliens. It's not aliens, worse, it's us. I just shortened up the title. And in order for all of us to sort all of this out, we need to work together, because if you have no reference point for a highly advanced, ancient, human, engineered, terraformed Earth experience, and you just have the memory or download of 20 past lives, and you saw an alien, you might describe it as an alien, and you might describe it as paranormal, but it's absolutely related to these other technologies. And what could be, again, as we table all the facts of these experiences, and maybe with our soon-to-be up-and-coming conference, it's going to be a chance to really connect people, so that I think for the people in the different fields for the first time, rather than being, not that anyone's adversarial, but in a way that could connect people even more, is to let them know that whether it is paranormal, UFO, or just alternative history in the sense that it's separated, I think it's time that we start tabling facts. And there are definitely people who have experiences that they don't have anything physical to handle, but there are definitely people out there that sound like they're telling you the prior plot to Deep Space Nine, and I think you should, we have to be discerning about some of the people that are clearly making stuff up, and then do whatever we can to sort through it all and be open.
That's right. Well, the way to wrap things up for us here. That was very good. Awesome. Now tell people how they can get your updated book that's coming out again, just before we leave.
Yeah, so I have a new Rockfin channel, but that's just for watching videos. Not Aliens shows my interview schedule, and of course has tickets for the virtual event and my book. So the book, like I said, I would say you could order it, but I'd like you to pause on getting it, because there'll be an updated version out in just a few weeks. It'll have some new info, and it will be very complimentary to the next two books that are coming, and Jennifer Deo is working on one of them with me. And then we are, of course, at America's Stonehenge May 1st in 2 weeks. I will be in Salem, New Hampshire, not the Salem everyone's thinking of, Salem, New Hampshire, and I will be giving a live lecture, which is available. I have $10 tickets, or for $29.95, I give people 6 months membership on Not Aliens. There's lots of there's great research, private, interviews, including one with you, and hopefully more. And all of that's at notaliens.com, and I'm on Not Aliens on YouTube. That gives people a bite of my private interviews. And then Rockfin, I'm excited to be on Rockfin. It's a interesting network, and I have all sorts of private stuff out on Rockfin.
Fantastic. Jared Murphy has been my guest tonight on Spaced Out Sunday, and boy, has this been a action-packed and information-packed show. So, Jared, thank you very much, buddy. We will be working together as we go forward on this whole idea of other things that we're working on as well. So, have a great week, buddy, and we will talk to you soon, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Was a man who had some land in eastern Washington. On his land, this man he had a deep dark hole of pond. People came from miles around to throw their trash down in to see how deep the hole was and listen for its end. The enforcement off his land. They paid him off and sent him off down under with a plan. They dig Mel's hole and covered it up so never could be found. So no one So if you chance to find yourself in Eastern Washington, hear the legend of Will be weary, my dear one.
Well, I want to thank everyone that
alone at night on that
remind you that Ron Bumblefoot Fall is our official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. You can find out more information and music at bumblefoot.com. A special thank you to everyone listening in at home tonight, in your cars at work, and the chat rooms, wherever you are around the world. Remember, this show is currently copyrighted by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thanks for sharing your evening with us tonight, folks, because together, my friends, we own the night. Good night, everyone. We'll see you next Sunday on Spaced Out Sunday.